Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is your Astro Shamanpreneur Bobby. We are doing an impromptu with Solar Systems. They've been on the channel once. Joe is coming back today. He is currently backstage getting ready for this transmission on the Mars opposition to Pluto and Aquarius. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring him in. Like I said, this is one of these retrograde themes going on between Aquarius and Pluto being retrograded right now because we tried to do something prior. It didn't work, but now we're here. It's back. And I'm going to go ahead and give him some love. Joe, what's going
Hell
on, my man?
Oh, glad to be back, man. Excited to talk about these transits. Actually, the first point I want to bring up is the difference in what we actually titled this thing. I forget what was the let me see what you titled it again. It was something about like justice and
I think I think I oh, you talking about on the actual flyer. You talking about a flyer.
yeah. Because I mean, like I thought they were both interesting and actually pertained to what the alignment was, but I just wanted to bring up the difference because it shows the difference of perspective, which will give everybody, a more holistic view of what's actually going on. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah, give it to us. Give it to us.
Yeah, so you said distraction and justice and
Uh-huh.
limits, and I said pride and prejudice. And I guess I'll, I mean, obviously you can go into why you said that, but I
For
like
sure.
what stuck to me up what stuck out to me about like pride and prejudice was like obviously Mars and Leo, pride, drunk ungodly power, walking around talking shit, saying whatever. And then
Mm-hmm.
Pluto and Leo, that's like the perfect example of like prejudice whatsoever. So I mean, I know we had a short time to come up with a description, but I wanted to come up with a bunch of witty things from the actual book that I could throw into the description, but I can always do that later. But point
Yeah.
why I said prejudice is because Aquarius, Aquarius is all
Sure.
about putting people's mentalities in boxes, having their own stubborn mentality in a box, and having that aligned with Pluto and like basically like prejudging what's going on, and then prejudging in terms of like off those like ideals that you already created about someone's mentality and how you box that in. That's like Pluto and Aquarius to a T. So
Sure.
like, having that opposition between those two of being like super prideful and like what we talked about before and having that prejudice on those mentalities of understanding what people are actually going through. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like it was a perfect title and a perfect understanding of what's actually going on.
Oh yeah, I'm loving it. We already got an Aquarius in the chat, so I'm happy to hear what I don't know everybody in the chat who's an Aquarius, but if you're an Aquarius, drop where your Aquarius is at, drop the planet, drop the house, drop the degree, because I know both Joe and myself, we love to get super specific, we love to get nerdy for
Hmm.
Aquarius, and do the same thing for Leo. So wherever you have Leo, what planet, what house, what degree, drop them all. I have a Jupiter in Leo, for example, so I can go ahead and type that. I don't know what Joe might have. Um, but that said, I think this is going to be a super interesting talk. I honestly feel like this is going to be a talk today that's going to stir up a lot of emotion. It's going to be a
Loved
talk
it.
today. It's going to. I felt it. I felt it early. I feel like the opposition. I'm here for it right now. Like this is not going to be. I feel like this is not going to be one of my sweet talks. If I'm being honest, this is not going to be one of my I'm here to soothe you and bring you down to earth kind of talks. Honestly, I'm just gonna give it to you raw, and it's one of the reasons why I feel like I felt called to Joe today
Yeah,
because
I was about to say.
Joe's ready for the smoke. I mean, it is what it is, and when I see Leo, he spoke about it on the Drunken Power, and even back in Gene Keys, this particular degree coming from the ending of Cancer, it kind of is the last 2 to 3 degrees of the Cancer, and it is in the transformation phase going to the first 2 degrees, I believe, of Leo, and it's gate 56, and it's like at the shadow frequency. And when I say shadow frequency, understand that none of the shadows that I'm going to mention are good or bad. This is transcending some sense of moralistic compass. It's not about good and bad. But when I say the shadow being distraction for this Leo energy, it oftentimes equates to like an internal distraction or an external distraction, right? An external distraction could be anybody we're talking to, could be any substance that we're involved with, anything that puts us in a state of fantasy, that puts us to not really see how we're externalizing, because Leo has a masculine energy. It externalizes its drama, it externalizes its shadows at times, and the shadow work is done coming from Cancer. So Cancer is like it's in its private space. It is a little more introverted. It really takes the time to hold on to its impulses, and Leo is that first sign coming out of, okay, look, I've held my impulses and now I need to try things out in variety, and I'm going to do this pridefully. And even if I'm wrong, I'm a hold on to it as if I'm still the top notch, because this is what it takes for me to differentiate myself from authority. And I find that like this is one of the major things behind Leo is like it looks to differentiate itself separate from parents. It's about 14 to 20 years age, and this is that like, dad, mom, I need to be me. Sports. I need to. I get that you don't like football and because it's physical, but I want to play football, do this or it's all about this popularity contest where Leo is in a space where it's trying to earn its accolades, it's trying to earn its popularity. And I find that with Leo energy and you put it in Mars now, the conflict can kind of come where it's like, are the people respecting how it is trying to honor itself? And I say keyword trying, where
Mm.
I feel like Aquarius is already old enough. It's coming in at like 60 something years old. It's already old enough where like it's not trying so overtly to gain its accolades. It just kind of has a little bit more of an entitlement. Like, look, I already got them. Like I'm not this young Leo. I'm not my young counterpart, but I still have a childlike energy. And so I feel like this is going to be kind of one of these 1-2 tugs and pulls between the two. And I only express Leo side, but let's stop there and see what you got for the feedback on it.
You talking about in the chat or me? Oh, Leo in the
No,
ninth
no, no,
house.
you. No, I was talking to you. I was talking to you. I just wanted to
Oh,
pause.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to give it a pause moment and hear from the left to the right.
I feel you. I feel you. Yeah. So I mean, in terms of like Leo, what you were saying about Venus is we're like in terms of like the actual, I guess the technical term is more galactic astrology when we're actually dealing with like the degrees and the
Sure.
understanding. We're moving
Mm-hmm.
from the Canis Minor constellation, which are stars like Gometia, Procyon. The other throat of the dog. The really like I got my personal feelings towards Procyon for extraneous reasons, but yeah, we're really transiting from that like Canis Minor to the actual Cancer constellation, which I think is like interesting for what you said about the like kind of like youthful, like I want to be me energy. And I'm trying to think of what the actual alignment is that everybody has at 14. It's either I think it's like it's either a no, it can't be a Uranus square. It's like I think it's like that first square yeah, no, it's the first Saturn square where you just want to rebel against the structure system of what was like brought in with the world with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So why I find it's interesting that you say that is because moving from like, Canis Minor, which is like more of like a younger dog, like kind of like a puppy, all the way into
Mm,
Cancer, right? Where it's just like you want to feel at home in yourself. So it's kind
sure.
of like moving along from that puppy dog love to being like, you need to show me respect. You need to show me pride that you actually want to like, be with me in terms of in like a relationship's like sense. So it's
Mm,
really just that like forceful energy of you want to truly care about your passage again. You really want to like bring that fire back. But it's kind of weird because of all of these actual constellations that are actually occupying the space of Leo, it's going to put us through like this weird rigmarole. But speaking about the degrees of the actual opposition itself, it's just I don't know. I just find it interesting of how like you actually said that, and it really just like translates the actual constellations that are occupying that space at the moment of time.
bro, it's all linked.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
all linked. Like no matter what system, no matter what profile, what platform. And I feel like one of these oppositions are between the two of them is really getting our ideas to be expressed among others
hmm,
and realize that there can be a disagreement
for sure.
and that disagreement does not equate to war or stress that has to be associated with a negative connotation
No,
because it does create a sense of war. It does create pressure and the stress. But what is it trying to break us through? And this is the key. Like, what part of our soul wants to shine? And how does the soul shine after it's been enshrouded in darkness? And I feel like, again, like when you look at like just the development between Aries, going from Aries to Cancer, and then Leo coming next. If I
hmm,
just look at that little segment, it's like Cancer is in this place where it's looking to find its belonging within the family, and it finds its comfort, its stability. It finds retreat within the family and within the home dynamic, where it's like, look, home, which at that time frame is still parents, family. It makes me feel like I belong somewhere, and in this belonging, I can kind of introspect. I can recognize my impulses and recognize, how am I forming a sense of morality within myself. And it's like when we come from this, it's still a very individual process. But
for sure.
Leo was the first interpersonal sign. It's like the first sign that's hopping out among others, where it's like, look, now I have friends. And if I don't have friends, I want friends. And if I want friends, I want to have the same sense of belonging I felt with my family, but separate from my family, separate from authority, separate from guardianship. Now I want to, in a sense, gain that authority and feel honorable amongst individuals that are like-minded, that are weird, and they have also explored their eccentric nature. They've also learned what their quirks were. And it's like within our little clique, we can shine together. And I find like what the opposition can really bring is when we did not get that space, let's just say from our parents, when we didn't get that space, well, now what happens? Because Leo is very confident, but the key thing is if your parents from that age of 14 to 20 years old gave you the space to explore a certain sense of variety, that is what essentially made you popular among your friends because your parents let you, and without too much resistance, say, hey, look, go ahead and differentiate yourself. And I feel like if that did not happen, this is what the opposition is going to really start to excite, as well as create more pressure and more tension with. It's like, okay, well, that did not happen. Now, because it's so prideful still, right? Like Leo in this, like because it still has its pride, that pride can go from like a positive sense of pride and to like a negative sense of entitlement, where it's like, now since I'm not getting this praise because I didn't have the exploration, the chance and the opportunity to explore,
Mhm.
I'm going to create drama. And I feel like this is the
Mhm.
other side of Leo that most people kind of associate, and they always look at Leos like, oh, I hate Leo, and Leos are so dramatic, and blah blah blah. I hear more bad things about Leo, sadly, than I hear good. And I
Man.
feel like this is the big issue because it's like, how many of our parents from that age are giving us the freedom, or how many are our parents at that same age from 14 to 20, right?
Mhm.
Where I'm now, let's say I'm the Leo in that age bracket, I'm differentiating myself. Okay, great. But I'm triggering my dad. I'm triggering my mom, who's my guardian in that, because they didn't get to differentiate themselves in that. So it's like, now do they hold you down? Do they not let you separate yourself and then feel enriched, right? And experience like what it feels like to have that intoxicated level of godliness, intoxicated level of like pride in yourself, a high worth, a high self-esteem. That's kind of the evolution of Taurus, self-esteem, self-worth. And it's
Mhm.
like, this is when I feel like the confidence, you no longer have the confidence to go date somebody. You don't have the confidence to go walk up and say, hey, look, can I get your number? You don't have the confidence to say, yo, Joe, you want to do this live? I got some new ideas that, you know what, I feel like you and I can talk about, you and I can share a stage, and we can generously kind of go back and forth. You don't have that confidence anymore with Leo, if in youth that was tampered with. And I feel like this is one of the things that the opposition to Pluto is going to bring up, these power struggles, and it's going to allow us to start objectively looking at situations and realize, yo, this is silly. Like I really don't want to keep holding on to this. It's not my battle. This is my dad's battle. This is my uncle's battle. This is my, you know what I mean? Whoever was your guardian during those time frame, this is their battle. But I've been holding it. And this fixed energy, it's like, look, the pressure is kind of making me want to boil a little bit, where I need to let this go somehow.
Mm. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I really like it. But the two things that kind of popped up for me when that was the classic trope of one Aries ascendants, and then
Mm,
also like the all the energy that built up from Saturn and Aquarius. But I'll start with the Aries ascendant. So when you were talking about like yeah, like just like the whole thing with the parents and like not getting like what you needed in terms of be the person that you needed to be, and like really having your own confidence with all this stuff,
mm,
it kind of bring up the classic trope of like Aries ascendants and Cancer in the fourth house, right? And then
mm-hmm,
like feeling not really realizing how much comfort they actually draw from being that pioneer or being that leader for people. So it
mm,
sort of seems like that would be a great lesson for everybody that's actually watching to really pay attention to that trope that they actually go through in terms of realizing like where do you actually draw your pride from? Is it a
mm,
sustainable source? Is it actually from within? Or is it for you having that ability to go out and be a pioneer
mm-hmm,
and being it for other people and neglecting the actual ability that you need to pioneer within yourself to pioneer that feeling of self-worth and actually having that feeling and not like really needing that like Libra in the seventh house energy of like having people bring balance in your own life externally,
mm,
that's sort of
mm-hmm,
like what I find interesting in terms of what you bring up. And then the other thing in terms of the Pluto opposition is I think a lot of people are going to be built up from that Saturn and Aquarius energy of like I kind of like to explain it as like more of a lower vibrational version is like everybody's out here searching for their tribe, right? And the internet
sure,
has done a lot of great things to find their tribe and stuff. But the one thing that Saturn and Aquarius kind of like put people in a hindrance against is
mm,
they're using the collective strength of a group around a certain fixated idea, aka old people in a Facebook group like Q or something, and really just deriving all of their stubborn ideologies from someone else's thoughts. You get what I'm saying here? So I feel
yeah,
like
yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I feel like that's going to be like a huge spark for like all of these people actually like leading into what you said of having that issue with their parents, and like basically all that time that they spent building that up in Saturn and Aquarius is going to be a pretty big Saturnian band-aid that might be ripped off during this time with the Pluto transit.
No, I agree, because this is one of the things, right? Like
Mhm,
eccentricity is one of the key commonalities between Leo and Aquarius. And it's like, well, where are we just imitating?
mhm,
Right? Like where we imitating because it's comfortable in that space, right? Like it's like, look, at least here, I'm not going to get any opposition. I'm not going to get any smoke. I'm not going to get any hate, you know. But the sad part, the downside, because this new moon was just happening in Taurus, right? Where
mhm,
it kind of activated this gate 8, and it's literally all about individuality, like and attaching to a positive sense of what that individuality is, like literally
mhm.
taking your own approach, something you have. And
Right.
the Taurus I have, right, is such an internal process, right? Like it's a feminine energy, is this internal receiving energy of like, well, this is literally what makes me unique
Mm,
before we get to Leo. And it's like Taurus has a different version of stubborn than Leo. Like Leo has had a little more practice and gone through the gamut of itself before it introduced to others. Taurus didn't get to introduce to others yet. Taurus is just
yeah.
for itself. So it's like, look, this is me. This is my natural talent. These are my natural abilities.
Mhm.
These are the positive or the negative images that I've held on to, and I hold them because this is my sense of safety, sense of security, just being me. Because at the end of the day, I'm me. And I feel like what you had just said is really critical. I even want to say right now in the astrology community, this is a huge one, because without any disrespect, this is what I'm seeing: copy and paste. It's just copy and paste.
Mhm.
And I say that with no disrespect. There's an overwhelming amount of copy and paste within the astrology networking community, and I
For sure.
don't think that that's bad. There is going to be an expiration date. And this is going to be the major thing. There's going to be a point where some will continue to individuate and separate themselves, and some will stay within this mainstream format of whatever astrology is today. And that's gonna hurt, right? Because when you think Leo, one of the things that comes to mind is popularity. And it's
Mhm.
like, well, what makes somebody popular? Like, what makes the jock popular? What makes the dancer popular? What makes the singer popular? It's like, well, at the end of the day, their voice is their voice. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
can't, if I try to hit the same notes as Selena Gomez, I'm gonna always fail. But if I try to hit the notes of Pernell Bobby,
You
well,
might
she
be
got nothing. She got nothing on me. Like,
Yeah.
like that's the simplicity. This is the simplicity, right? Like she got nothing on me. And so, again, I'm saying it just from the astrology community because this is part of what it is.
Mm,
I've seen it happen within human design as well, and that was 4 years ago when I watched this happen in Bali, and that was one
mm.
of the reasons why I was like, I stayed away, and I didn't even fully know why I stayed away. If I'm being honest, I
Well,
didn't
Bali's a
know.
whole other story when in terms of the spiritual community. I'm sure you're well
Bali is
versed.
a whole nother story in the spiritual community.
Yeah,
Yes,
you can't good vibes everything.
you can't good vibes everything, but they do.
Mhm.
But they do. It's like peace, love, and light. I started hating that whole 1, 2, 3 phase. It was just
I
like,
hate it now.
I don't even really hear it that much anymore now, and it's one of the major things. So if we kind of backtrack, all right. If I think about, we talked about Leo, okay,
Mhm,
and one of the things before I move into Aquarius on that side, so we can understand that side of the opposition,
mhm.
is Leo at gate 56. This is why I don't think I put this on the title, but I wanted to. I don't think it fit. Intoxication. Did I put that word by chance? Did you see that? I don't know. I don't
I
think I
think you
did.
put it in something else, but I think it gets you
Distraction, justice, and limits, right?
Yeah,
So the justice and the limits actually equate more to the Aquarian side, and we'll get to that.
for
But
sure.
intoxication is this very God level frequency of Leo,
Mm,
and
I
and
know
and
something
and,
about
it,
that.
and it's not as simple as drunk on power. I feel like there's a quick response to it, which would be
Yeah.
like drunk on power, but I think it's not that simple. Like the
Well, I think it
unconscious.
comes from not to cut you off, but I think it
No,
comes
go
from
ahead.
the low-key exaltation of Leo in Neptune, where it's like they're
This is a
so
part of
attached
it.
to their own personal vision that, like, they
This
just
is a
create
part of
their
it.
own illusion, and you're just like, "Alright, we'll see you in 2 weeks when you come back to reality."
This is a part of it, and this is one of the things I love that you brought the Neptune up, because
Mhm.
I love the fact that Leo is exalted in Neptune. I feel like it explains the reason why it's the strength card in tarot. Are you
Mm,
familiar with tarot? I think the Neptune aspect is why the strength card is Leo, because what is the strength card? It's a woman, it's a lion, right? And
mm,
she's holding back the power of the lion, but she's doing it with grace and ease, right? She's not tugging, she's not pulling. And a part of that symbolization and interpretation of the strength card is that, like, okay, how can you recognize your soul urge, but again, you're so in control of your power and your impulses because thank God the Cancer prior that you're not moving like Aries. You're not taking your impulse to the max on day one or on the first second, 0 to 60. Leo is a fixed fire, where it's like, look, one of the biggest difference between Pisces and Leo in this instant, when I look up at the Neptunian aspect, it's like, look, Pisces is still water and is mutable. So it has this very, very magical ability to create and manifest. That one, I think no one will ever argue. But fire, huh? What's up?
no, you just look like you were about to say but, and I just got there
No,
first.
no, 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 no. I think nobody would ever argue that. And
Mhm,
I think I did say but. But fire, that was a
mhm,
but. But fire and fixed energy, not mutable water,
mhm.
fire and fixed energy, it's willing to take a risk on the dream. It's
For
willing
sure.
to believe the delusion, but with action. And this is one of the major differences, because I find a lot of Pisces will believe the delusion and they'll stay in the delusion. And it could take time to be cardinal and push.
Mhm.
Like, because at a certain point, right, the opposite Pisces, you got to Virgo this shit. Like, you have to ground it somehow. You have
Yeah.
to bring it into reality, because otherwise it'll come and then it'll disappear. And this happens so frequent with Pisces. They get their dream, they get their dream guy, they get their lover, and it disappears. And it's like, well, oh yeah, you didn't realize that relationships take work. like great relationships, you got it, but it takes work. You can't just be in love with somebody and that's going to be enough. It does not work. And I feel like Leo has that sustainability when I look at that. And I feel like this is why the strength card plays in. So if I kind of step back into it, you're
I think
right.
you just
It's
described the positive aspect of the intoxication you were talking about.
that was it. That
Yeah.
was it. That literally is it. It's like Leo has the
It's
ability
negative. Yeah.
to recognize because Aquarius has this air energy where it can be objective, outside the
Mhm.
objective, outside the objective. I always look at it as like it can astral project outside of its astral projection, outside of its astral projection, and it can see this
Oh,
the
that's too
cosmos,
yeah.
right? From like
Yeah.
way out here.
Mhm.
And Leo has a part of this ability. And so when I look at this, it's like Leo's intoxication at this God level frequency, it can see how silly and foolish life is. It can recognize the comedy and the drama of life. And it realizes this is hilarious. It just looks at life, it
It
looks
is.
at people arguing at war and all that. It's like this is hilarious. Like, this is a comical drama. This is a tragedy that is something to laugh about, because it realizes I'm just sitting in a seat and this is what makes it fun. I'm not really trying to control it. And it's the Neptunian part of Leo. It's like, I'm not really trying to control it. Like, divinity is working. I'm not really in charge. And this is what allows it to witness its character as a role, as an actor, while still being in the human body. And it has that part of that Aquarian counterfeit. And so I feel like the Leos that can respect that and recognize that as a part of their gifts, their natural innate abilities and gifts, coming from Neptune, also sideline Aquarius on a shadow frequency, this becomes that intoxication that now everybody is like, yo, you know what? That Leo is and has so much light, so much joy, not because they're transmuting the sunlight, but because they can be enshrouded by complete and absolute not knowing, unknowing, like
Mm.
the emptiness, the void, as so the etheric space, and it can
Well, I mean,
just sit
like,
in that.
that's their whole deal, you know? The whole point is they don't need any external vision. That's like what they do. That's what they're incarnated for. That's what all Leos are here for. To have the vision for people to hold on to it regardless of what's going on.
Mm. I think this is the magic. When I I had to really like take more and more time to just sit for myself and like feel into Leo, because like I said, I've met so many people when they talk about Leo, all I hear is bad things. If I'm being honest, like I don't hear many good things. I don't. And that could just be how it's manifesting in my life. That's a strong possibility. But most
Yeah,
times I'm just listening. If I'm being honest, I'm just
for
listening
sure.
and I'm like, I don't really believe this. Like, and I've lived with Leos. Like, I've had a Leo that I lived with, and I'm like, she was such an awesome person. Like, it was just so confusing. I'm like, she was awesome. Everything about her was dope. So, I feel like this is the Leo aspect where when we put Mars in the picture now, where
Mhm.
Mars and Leo now come in, I do
Well, I mean,
believe in the
that's something that we kind of got some expertise on being with our fifth house placements.
oh, 1000% with the
Mhm.
Aries in the fifth.
Mhm.
So give me your Aries in the fifth.
My Aries in the fifth. I mean, I got my moon there. I got like
No, no, no. Give me your interpretation as somebody who resonates with Aries in the fifth.
oh, okay. I mean, it's just like I can speak to a lot of the intoxication on power of where it's just like, like sometimes you want to be like, so many people buy into my hype. I don't even have to buy into my hype too. But that doesn't really happen for Aries in the fifth house, even when people do buy into your hype. Like I've literally had people walk in and bow down to me. And then I'll just go on an entire week-long bender of like, I'm amazing. I can't believe I did this. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
You kind of like you sort of like bounce between like where you're just like, all right, I need to humble myself. I need to humble myself. I need to humble myself. And then you just can't do it because you just like when you try to humble yourself, you're really just like pouring gas on the fire because more people are being like, oh wow, you're that amazing and you're humble. And then you start believing in your own myth even more. But then it's weird because you convince yourself that it is real, even when you know that you probably should be more humble. And you just keep going back forth, and trying your best to like calm down. But you really just can't do it because you're just like, but I am doing these amazing things. I am making it happen. And then you're just like, eventually it just fizzles out at some point. You got to get a new wave because you're just not hype on something anymore. Maybe that's more of like my Gemini interpretation of it, how you're just bouncing between. And that really
Yeah.
ladders onto the excitement. But like, oh man, I mean, and then I got a Yod in my Sun, Moon, Ascendant, so that might add a little extra to it. But like, it's just like, you could try as sometimes you can just try as hard as you want to be humble, and all that's going to do is just lead into the problem. So maybe you really have to like, I don't know, at least for my personal opinion, you have to double down on your intoxicated ego-ness to the point that it blows up in your face so you can learn how to calm down. But that just might be
Mm.
Scorpio ascendant. That's my take on it though. It's a weird
It's
battle, especially in youth.
I could definitely see it.
Mhm.
I definitely can see it. And I think the last thing you said is the key words. It's like I feel like this is Aries as like 2 of Wands, 3 of Wands before
Mm.
it becomes Emperor. Like,
Ah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I feel like at a point it becomes Emperor. And it's like, well, what gets it to the Emperor? Because I have an Aries fifth house moon, and you have an Aries fifth house moon as well, right?
Yeah, and apparently Hannah does too.
And she has a fifth house moon in
Oh,
the
what the
fifth.
hell is going on?
No, is that serious? She has a fifth house moon, or is it fifth
Yeah,
house
what?
stellium
Ah,
using
I was about
placid?
to be
No, no,
like,
no.
damn, we really got
I think she's fifth house stellium, but her moon might be a different house. I don't remember where
mm,
her rising. She's Virgo rising, so that's more eighth house.
okay.
Um, and so no, but I totally get it. So the major thing is I think this is a time frame, and I've been trying to tell people like I think I was talking to you about this earlier, right? Where like when I was younger,
Mm,
everything you just said, and I'm saying this Aries Sun, Aries Moon, Aries Mercury all in the fifth, and it's like those all being conjunct within. I mean, two of them are at the same degrees, exact conjunction, Sun and Moon, Sun and Mercury,
yeah,
and then my Moon is a 4 degree orb, right?
okay.
And so I feel like in my youth, I could not separate. Right, like I didn't grow with a separate moon from a sun sign. I didn't grow with these conflicting light and dark shadow personality. I didn't grow with a conflicting mindset. It
Mhm.
was all merged into one. And
Ooh,
to be honest, that was really hard to understand what that even meant for the longest time, even when I came to astrology. But
mm,
when I reflect back on my youth, in all sincerity, one, this equated to a lot of fights. I just got to be honest. Like I've gotten to a lot of physical fist fights. It's just the truth. I've seen a lot. I've
mhm.
been in a lot. I've started pretty much none of them.
Even in Bali?
No, this is like I said in my youth. By the time I was in Bali, I was in my healing stage, and
Mm,
Bali for me was a Neptune line. So
gotcha.
this is my surrendering. If anything, is surrendering everything you just said. Like everything you just said, it was that time frame when like all of it was just like I'm healing, I'm letting it all go, I'm recognizing the ego, I'm recognizing how it can be powerful, I'm recognizing how it can be debilitating. I'm
Mm,
talking like younger, like high school for sure, into like college, where eventually I got arrested enough where I was like, okay, look, this is
ah,
gonna start to stick. And I was
yeah,
like, this is This is the bigger problem, right? I'm like, okay, look, I have no more get out of jail free cards. And that's
Did you grow
essentially
up on
what
the
happened.
East Coast?
I grew up on the East Coast in
Oh, okay. So
Connecticut.
you know about bathroom fights.
Bathroom fights, I know about bathroom
Yeah,
fights.
yeah. Okay,
I
okay.
did not get involved in many bathroom fights. I have seen few, but I
Mhm.
mostly walked away from them. There were so many. They were all the time. I
I
got
just
into
feel it's such an
cafeteria
East
fights.
Coast thing. I don't know how to explain it.
So we talk about Aries in the fifth. I got into cafeteria fights. So it's
Ah,
like it's not in this secluded little place. It's like, look, everybody's gonna understand. Do not mess with me because this is the result. And I
mhm.
didn't consciously, if I'm being honest, I didn't consciously. I wasn't a conscious decision. It was more of like I'm fed up. Like
Gotcha.
it was like, look, like y'all picking on me. I ain't saying nothing, and y'all getting the wrong impression. Well, now we got to end it. And it kind of was one of these, like, I just was fed up, if I'm being honest. And that's how most times equate it. Just got fed up.
Mm,
Now, again, like I said, this is in the younger stage. Eventually, I realized, one, that I don't really like violence. That's one of the big, wild realizations. Like, I really don't like being violent. But I
yeah.
also had to realize that I was addicted to violence. And this is something that was hard to understand, especially so young. It's like, it was the only outlet that I knew. It was like, you mess with me, you got to get put down. And it was just that simple. But again, it's a part of the environment we grew up in. Like, I mean, I'm watching this show on TV and it's like literally all black people. And it's like, it's a very common thing in black homes. Where it's like, you don't ever start a fight, but if somebody messes with you, you finish them. And you better
Mm,
not come home and get your ass whooped. And if you got your ass whooped, I'm going to whoop your ass again. I kid you not, every black person, at least maybe not every single black person, right? But the majority that you're gonna meet, their parents probably had the same rule.
mm.
Their parents probably had the same rule. And I just heard it on TV last night, and somebody said the same thing. Matter of fact, on the Boston Celtics, you're in Philly. Boston Celtics, the guy was in the interview. He just did the playoff game, and he said the same. He did everything I just said. He said the same thing.
Damn.
So that was just part of the mentality. But again, it's part of a survival mindset. It's part of a survival mentality where like our parents really knew that our son or our daughter, they might not come home. And it's more important for them to come home than worrying about them getting in trouble in school. It's like we need them to live. And it's like that's a very different survival mindset. So again, that's a wild tangent, but
I mean, it explains Aries in the fifth house quite well.
it explains they're in the fifth house at that stage. And
That's
that's mostly what I wanted to kind of because eventually it holds its impulses. And like I said, my Mars being in Cancer,
mm,
one, it contributes to the violence, quite frankly. But on the other side, it can hold the impulses of Aries.
yeah.
So if I get that impulse where like, yo, I want to knock this guy out, I can stop, pause, and reflect and be like, first off, yo, you got no more get out of jail free cards. And that was probably the real first thing that stopped me because until that happened,
Mm,
in my mind, life wasn't much set. It was just like, look, you don't mess with me and we're fine. And I'm a happy person. Like I love to love. Like I don't like fighting, but I will love, I must. And so in my mind, I can tell some part of this was like also past life, just barbaric, blah, 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 blah. But
mm.
it's like in my mind, it's like these are just the rules. And you shouldn't get in trouble for such things. You shouldn't get in trouble for defending yourself. That was how my mind was working. Where it's like I can't start it, but I will finish it. But that's how my mind worked. So eventually I had to realize really where gate 60 comes in, aka Pluto and Aquarius right now, where it's at, just
Okay.
the first couple degrees, where it speaks about limitations. It speaks about rules. It speaks about structures of society, where all the rules, the structure, limitation says, you know what? It doesn't matter, Pernell, if your mind says that. That's not reality. That's not the world we live in. It's
Mm.
not the timeline we live in. Maybe if you were living in the Middle Ages, that flew. Maybe your past lives, you could do that. You can live like that. But now we have rules. Now you can go to jail, right? You can lose job opportunities. You can. It's all these kind of themes. Uh-oh. I think that's my water guy. Hola, buenas.
I'm gonna turn on Pluto lights.
Yo, I need you to take it for a second. I think that's my water guy outside.
Yeah, I got you. I'll just turn on lights.
Cool. Yeah, we get the water delivered. We can't drink from the faucet out here. Okay, here we go. All right, take it over. Oh,
Wait,
no,
wrong one.
yeah,
Thank you.
you.
Okay, guys. So Pluto and Aquarius, right? Now we can talk specifically about the actual degrees that we're experiencing. So if I remember correctly, hey boy, Ooh, damn, still got the audio. I don't think we actually made it to a full-on like first or second degree of Pluto and Aquarius. But the interesting thing about that is we're actually dealing with some unique stars that we're transiting with that. So the first early star that we're now dealing with actually in retrograde is the actual Cygnus. And what we transited through that is the star called Albiro. Albiro is a part of Cygnus. Cygnus is the actual swan constellation in the sky. And what that kind of means is it's sort of showing you what it is to be, beauty and deal with beauty, right? There's a lot of parts of it. If you actually get a specific star on your moon sign, it deals with more specific aspects of the swan. But for the purposes of Pluto, what we're dealing is with more calmness, more beauty, the actual understanding of that cusp between Aquarius and Capricorn, of where you're learning the balance and you're living in the exact in between of the masculine and feminine aspects of Saturn. So when you're kind of dealing with that in between aspect, you kind of deal with is like the Metatron energy. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Metatron. Metatron's like this, he's not exactly an archangel, but he lives in between like the ninth and the zero realm where he kind of just like watches over all experience. So it's a very unique aspect to sort of sit in between the aspect of having Pluto, the planet of power and control, dealing with Saturn, and then dealing with that balance of that exact in between space, right? Because when you're an angel that can truly experience anything and sees all experience, you have no need for power. So this is where it gets really interesting. We're actually dealing with that exact cusp energy of the opposition, of being in the space of, hey, we're looking at this, or hey, we're looking at that, but we're maintaining balance with the actual structure system and power that we're experiencing. So really pay attention to what we're going through over the next couple of weeks, especially when Pluto's really, really dipping back into that exact cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius, because it will remove yourself from power in a way and sort of exalt the actual Leo energies. Hey, we're back.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, I went on a whole long tangent that I don't know if I explained perfectly, but we're out here trying.
Cool. What was it about?
I was talking about how when we're actually dealing with the early degrees of Pluto, where we haven't exactly gotten to the space of where I was going to get into. Oh, we just got into Aquila, the actual Eagle constellation, and we're going to be angling the star Altair at about 2 degrees of Aquarius, where that's all about spiritual warfare, blah, 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 but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But the tangent I did get into is the unique experience of the cusp between Aquarius and Capricorn, and how that kind of deals with like the Metatron energy of being able to oversee all experience whatsoever, which is an interesting place to be when you balance both aspects of Saturn. Because when you do get in that space, you have the structure, you created perfectly, and you have the structure like, oh, okay, then I explained it perfectly. All right, word. So it's like you have the ability to create the structure to receive the status that you want, and you have the ability to push out and be stubborn with the status that you want, which I think is the perfect exaltation of the Metatron energy in this realm, because that's a true space where you can experience also what need do you have for power. So then it's like a really weird, like kind of like blend between like that we're going to be experiencing with Pluto on that exact cusp dealing with this opposition. Because I feel as though it's like when you said Pluto's like, that like 60-year-old person, it's just going to watch because it's already been through that experience. It already knows. So then it's like in some weird way, the Leo side of that is going to take over during this period that we're in. So I don't know. I found that interesting.
No. So that's smack on point, because this is again the synchronicities. Like even back in human design, the lower frequencies that you got to get through first is like the limitations of basic human reality. Okay, before we get to Metatron and X, Y, and Z, because it's like that doesn't exist in governmental buildings like the Secretary of States and the President's White House and people passing laws and sanctions and blah blah blah, right? So it's like, but when we get beyond that, which is what these limitations are essentially, when we embrace the limits that stop our conscious awareness to be able to actually not just talk about everything you just said, but to actually embody the frequencies where essentially I don't know if the right word is evaporate, but like Lucy, have you seen Lucy?
Yeah.
Okay, you see how she kind of evaporated into dust, if you will, and she became a part of everything and nothing, and being able to start to, she just became one with the universe in a sense. This is kind of the same gate 60 and this Pluto bringing us through this like genetic mutation at a physical level where we can actually find justice, literally justice. And justice is not in some moral law sense. It's actually superseding good and bad and morals altogether. And it's like these are one of the things. This is a little more complicated when I'll explain in a moment, but this is one of the things that when we supersede this good bad narrative as well as polarities or
Mm.
even this shadow and light, like beyond those frequencies, like look, it doesn't even exist anymore. And this is when we can start to teleport. This is when our consciousness, we can literally pop up on Andromeda and like, wait, can I breathe here? And it's like, yeah, you can breathe here. We don't breathe. You know what I mean? It's like we don't even like we don't need water. You don't need food. And so it's like this is actually part of how on the low frequency, when I see this opposition of Pluto and Aquarius with Mars, it's like if we can take that drunken, godly state of Leo and realize that, oh my God, we're in this simulation, which we just are in our own way, right? If we look at it from a fractal standpoint, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, look, we're in this simulation. Life is now just freaking hilarious because why do people do that? And then it's just like, you get to like laugh in the back seat, but it's like that can help us align with kind of what you were saying a little bit with this Metatron frequency. It's like, okay, if we just look at the records, right? If we just look at our Akashic record, we start realizing, well, you know what? I really was a wizard.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like I can cast spell, I can create blah 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 as an alchemist, and it's like it starts to break what we consider reality. But that also has to happen at such a collective level, right? Like if I myself and you are the only two that can do that or recognize that, then it's not actually real in this particular reality. But when 8 billion of us do it together, Earth dissipates, at least our form on this planet. And now we can be formless
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, anywhere. Hey, what's up, J Lo? So is that anything? I kind of came in late from what you're saying, but for some reason that's where it brought me. Is that anywhere close to what you were talking about?
I mean, yeah, I just think it was from a different perspective that I have no concept of, but now I do. Yeah,
Okay.
I thought it bounced off it perfectly, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know. I feel like I explained my concept, and you just added on a story, and then people got a more holistic view of what we were talking about. So there we go. And then while you were talking about like the about just like looking at the world as like a ha 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 ha, what's going on type of thing. I thought of two stories, and I want to tell two random stories that have no like really connection to the spiritual aspect, but it just shows like how random the universe is if you truly do have that perspective.
Hit us.
Okay. So the first one is I was playing this video game with my friend, and it makes no goddamn sense because it's like a mix of like The Last of Us and like Fortnite. But we were basically building a tree house, and we were chopping down these logs to build this tree house, and he was sending them up to me on a zip line, and I just thought it was cool. And then it was on the exact moment of the new moon, and I said, Henry, we're gonna do this when you buy a house, and I bet you damn well that we're gonna figure out a way to send logs up on a zip line. And then the second thing is it's like I've been rock climbing for like 11 or 12 years. I don't know if you know, but
Mm-hmm.
I think I talked to you about it before. But I
Mm-hmm.
was up in New York climbing, and like it's like a common thing in the big wall community of like you just meet people on top of walls that you know from the gym like all the time. I don't know why it happens this way. I don't know how it happens this way, but I have not climbed a route that was over like 300 feet without meeting somebody that I know. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, the last time this happened, I met two people I know from the gym at two separate times on this wall while we were waiting to do this crazy climb. So basically, what happened is we were just sitting up there, we were waiting, and then I go, oh shit! I started right next to like some dude who's like the dad of a kid that's on like a competitive climbing team, and I was like, yo, what's going on? I ain't seen you in like 2 years. And then I'm on this climb, waiting on this ledge, dealing with some people that are really stupid. So we ended up sitting on the ledge for like an hour. To elaborate on how bored we were, we started whipping out the Pythagorean theorem to decipher how far it would take for us to get from point A to point B, and like literally just like jump off. We like did the whole math on the acceleration and all that on like theoretical hypotenuses and all that shit. But then I hear this one name out of the corner of my ear, and I'm just like, someone yelled O'Neal, and I was like, there's only like one, I only know one O'Neal, and two, I only know one O'Neal that climbs, so it has to be this motherfucker right here. And like literally, I see him coming down from the sky, rappelling down, and I'm just like, yup, that's him. And it just kind of like goes to show that A, the climbing community is very small, and then B, you have no idea what the fuck is going on all the time. And here
Right.
we go. I never would have expected that I woke up the day that I drove 3 hours to go to New York to climb, that I would run into two people I know and then do a bunch of math from the 10th grade, deciphering how the acceleration of a zip line to a pool because we were bored.
So
And it's all
definitely random story, hilarious. What's the link Why did you bring it up? Out of curiosity.
Oh, I bring it up because when you like really get into that space of like looking at like I guess like I don't want to say the holographic universe, but looking at like your mental field is like kind of like the simulation that we're in. If you really remove yourself from the potential of what's going on, you could
Uh-huh.
really just experience crazy things like that, and then that like it also inspires the fact that like I think a healthy level of detachment will get you a lot of places in life.
It will.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you put that back in frame with Aquarius,
Hmm.
that healthy level of
Oh, that
detachment,
was the lick. That's an Aquarius story. It has no
that
real.
was yeah, that was the Aquarius story. Like when you
Yeah.
put it in objective frameworks, it's like the best definition I've heard of detachment
Mm,
is that nothing owns you.
mm,
And it goes a little bit longer. I think it's in like the Bhagavistana. I think like the Bible of Hindu culture.
mhm,
I don't know what it is called exactly. Um, but for whatever reason, it says detachment isn't that you own nothing. It's that nothing owns you.
mm.
And then the phrase is longer than that, but it's the part that I remember. And when I start recognizing that, it's like, okay, so when you look at Aquarius, what is the detachment from? A lot of the detachment is from your career expertise. It's like, okay, it's not that,
That threw me for a loop.
it's the career expertise, right? Because coming from Capricorn, we're looking to be the masters, and we're actually not just because Virgo would be like working towards mastery, right?
Mhm,
And it'll likely achieve it. But Capricorn is like you've achieved it. You've achieved mastery. Now you're known as the top-notch astrologer.
mhm,
Now you're known as the first person to make it to the moon, right? As a career in NASA. Now, blah blah blah. You're known as it. So, but Aquarius, and I feel like what Pluto was about, Aquarius is this place where now you're like, okay, in human years, you're about 65 to 77 years old. And you're like, that doesn't matter anymore. Like it does not matter that people know me as the top astrologer or the number one yoga expert. It doesn't matter anymore. And so now you become more charitable. And this is the other side of Leo's generosity, where it's
mhm,
like Leo doesn't have the same accolades that a lifetime of Aquarius getting ready to die in Pisces has accumulated. Aquarius is like, look, I've accumulated these things and now I can use my extra resources, which is part of Saturn's influence and resources. It's like I can use my resources that I've used or that I've gained at the top of this mountain and I can disseminate them to the people, quote unquote. And it's like I can give this out because this is what's going to ultimately liberate, which is what I really want to do with my Uranus aspect. I want to liberate others, especially creative souls, especially creative talents, everything Leo-esque in this, right? And it's like the key things that I find with this is when you're not at this in Pluto, Pluto being Aquarius, we got a glimpse in Saturn. Pluto, I think, is going to be way more. I mean, whatever happens, is way more permanent, right? I think Pluto and Aquarius, Saturn and Aquarius kind of got us prepared for
mm,
certain,
mhm.
limitations that. But Pluto was like, look, now I got you in a chokehold, and I actually don't care about your feelings. You know what I mean? It's like so. Hey,
No,
while we're going retrograde, let's go back to Capricorn,
mhm.
right? Because that's what the retrograde is going, right? It's going to go back in Capricorn. Let's go back to Capricorn, and let's see how this title has held you back.
Ah, mm,
You know what I mean? It's like let's see how this title has eventually held you back. Because first off, we're done with that, but I need to remind you one last time so that going forward how will you use this success? How will you use this status and these accolades and this money and these resources that you've gained? Even if it's this right now, StreamYard having this is a resource, right? Being able
mm,
to combine guests, it's like, well, how can you invite people? How can you use this resource and support others, people who have like minds, people who are no longer in a popularity race of the Leo side of this, but they're just looking to honor each other, right? Within the network that matters to you. And again, I'm just using astrology in because we both work in astrology, right? We
for sure.
both love the stars, we both speak the language. And so it makes the most sense with this particular channel as well. It's like how can astrologers across the board unite? And how can we do it without in a prideful way, but in a way where the pride does not become a competition? It doesn't become something where it's like, I need to do this and show you up. or you need to do this and show me up. And it's like, how can we have conflicting ideas, conflicting thoughts, and conflicting personalities that, and at the end of the day, because of generosity, because of a warm heart, we can embrace those levels of discourse and laugh in the moment and realize that, you know what, this is not a battle between you and I. At the end of the day, we're both these drunken wizards on stage walking people through what seems to be reality at this time frame of life. And I feel like this is what Pluto and Aquarius will do, but it will have a lot of power struggle in the meanwhile. We're going to have a lot of tough lessons, and we're going to have to give something because Pluto is about exchange, right? It's about finding the wealth beneath the surface. So it's like, what's the wealth beneath the surface? If we're not exchanging money, what are we exchanging? It's more of a social currency that is involved with the heart. And I think this is one of the major themes that we got. Venus and Leo is going to retrograde for like months. I don't know how long.
I don't know about months, but it's going to be a while. And I do have an interesting point about that. But you kind of really bring up like about like 10,000 different holistic topics that we could have like gone into in your last little.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Well, the one that we started on was talking about like going back from Pluto back into Capricorn, which is going to be like a whole other thing because in terms of like a global standpoint, obviously that's going to like bring back America's Pluto return, and you know the whole YouTube's going to be going crazy about de-dollarization all over again. But then why is it making you look at that, and why is it making you feel uncomfortable? And then why is no one planning about that? And it's like the whole, you know, like the whole pandemic thing again, where it's just like everybody bought toilet paper instead of vitamins, so it's a whole other thing. And then yeah, so it's just like a whole other thing like that. And then it's just like, well, when you bring up that, then you want to bring up the point of why are we retrograding and experiencing these exact same degrees over the past 4 years over and over and over again. And it really is just to the point of you know, saying basically like the universe is like, we're about to enter this upshift. Here's 1,000 things that you need to grow up with really, really quickly. It ain't going to be good. It ain't going to be bad. You'll be good after the fact, and it'll be painful along the way potentially. But you know, you got to do it because we're upshifting here. And if you don't want to live in the 13th dimension, which is a fake version of the fourth dimension that they're trying to force on you, this is what you got to do. Because it really goes into like a whole other thing about like, yes, Pluto and Aquarius is going to bring like AI out, which will probably push forward blockchain technology, which for the same reason that like people with true internal gifts are going to be popular because they need a way that they can actually verify the exact aspect of, you know, like say like, you know, I'm really thinking like 10 thoughts at once. I gotta focus. Sorry, I'm having a Gemini moment. But
go ahead, spit it out. It's are we moon in Gemini today?
What?
We moon in Gemini, man. Spit them out.
I know. I'm trying. It's just like it's hard to talk and think 10 thoughts at once. But whatchamacallit. So yeah, so then it'll be like, yes, we have to tokenize movies now because that's how we can isolate the actual creator and the creative in that individual moment before we can just tell ChatGPT version 40 to create that entire movie all over again and claim ownership. You know, because falsifying like what all this and putting out all this information is going to like flood the market in a sense. So it's just basically like this is what's going to like really, really bring spirituality and all that stuff to the forefront of why everybody needs to go within themselves, heal themselves, and focus on all that energy. Because basically, this is where you will finally be able to like be that gold in the sea of hay that is going to be all this information that's out there. And yes, this information is good to like a certain extent, but why we're pushing all this spirituality and pushing all this stuff so far is to teach you to truly detach from all that externalization, like we were talking about, align with yourself, and really don't like, you know, choke yourself from focusing on too much information and trying to look externally instead of focusing on your internal intention and seeing what aligns with you for the time being, because it doesn't matter. There's 1,000 YouTube channels of how to get rich now, and they're all saying along the lines of align with God, and nobody's really blurring the lines and looking the point of like, hey, they went within and aligned with what they're truly good at. You could pick any one you want, no matter how popular they are. And as long as you align yourself with that true intention, you will move forward. And I think this is my tangent, which is on like the Pluto, like retrograde and cusp of where it's like, look at your past status, blah, 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 and then move forward because we're going to start like really putting the pressure on these fixated thoughts that you align with during the Saturn and Aquarius time. And that's just the tidbit on that in terms of like that individual retrograde. We have all these other retrogrades. And then, you know, once we go through this Martian period, Venus is going to align you again, probably with your ex. That's like, oh my God, you were always the one to be with me. Da, 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 da.
Yo,
and then decision to either break that person's heart again or relearn something, or just, like option three, which is probably what I'm going to do, but we're not going to speak on that. And then, whatchamacallit, like it's a
Oh
whole,
man, what's option 3?
just have fun with them and remember that it's not permanent.
Yo, so
But
I've
that's,
been
that's
feeling,
the little that I got to learn.
that comeback energy on.
Mm,
Oh man, I fumbled you. I swear to God, and
mhm.
it's just this silent voice. It's not even really here. Like no one has said this to me verbally. You just said it out loud
Yeah.
because Geminis can do that. They can mirror somebody's thoughts and shoot them out loud on impulse. But it's like I swear, it's been just tingling in the background. So that's one major thing that's going to happen. Um, there's mad things you said that I feel very excited about, and it's like
Well, it's going
I
to be
almost
cool. Yeah.
I almost got to like pause and think for a moment. Like, okay, what am I really responding to?
What are you responding? Oh, yeah, you got Paul. My bad.
Okay, so this is the major one. I don't know where it linked to what you said, but
I'll figure that out.
when we look at the retrograde, we're going back from a career level to Capricorn, right? And we're talking into Aquarius. There was a point where I remember telling you we were going to do a live, and then I was
Right.
like, "Yo, I gotta pause," and I was like, "I don't know why." And then when I took the time to reflect, I realized, wow, I was like, all right, I needed to make considerations about what frequencies do I want to align with. Now,
Mm,
I'm saying that, and I'm gonna keep this next part broad. I knew some of the collaborations you did, right? And I was like, okay, do I want to fuse my audience with this particular audience? And I'm
right.
gonna leave that open because you know where we're at with this, right?
Right.
And I was like, okay, do I want to do that? And I was like, no. Okay, so now there's gate 56. Now look at we're here now. Retrograde brought us back. We're here
Yeah.
now. So gate 56. One of the things it says is, um, en route to this drunken state of godliness to laugh at everything. Right? There's this in between stage where low frequencies only excite you
Mm,
because you realize that this is fuel to the pot. It's like there's this point where when I look at this retrograde, how it's hitting me, I've watched certain moments where I have made connections with people in low frequency, and it like completely turned my direction in ways where I was like, I don't want to do that again.
hmm.
And so this was how it kind of came back and hit me. But then this retrograde was also kind of showing this evolution of, hey, but by the way, you kind of mixed up your timelines, and that's who you were like years ago. That's not how you handle low frequency today,
Mm,
now, in this stage. And so it was kind of like a memory. If you think like the nostalgia from Cancer working into Pluto and Capricorn, it's kind of like a memory that was out of timelines, right? And so
right.
my point being, this 56 gate, Mars and Leo right now, which will also be Venus and Leo, it speaks about like, look, you can now tap in and tune in with a low frequency and realize that at the end of the day, it's a frequency.
Mm,
It's just a frequency. And this is kind of like the opposition is bringing out this understanding of, look, there's no such thing as a good moral and a bad moral. You don't need someone to tell you what's good and what's bad. And it's us walking and getting beyond this of like, well, if there's no laws about, killing a man is good or bad, well, would I kill somebody? And it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
probably
and
not.
that's an extreme example, but it's like probably not. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I thought, and I'm going to use this example with mass shootings in the US, for example, right? It's
Mm,
like if I'm, craving attention and I'm not getting it, would I really shoot up a school? Or am I just doing it because I know that at the end of the day, I'm going to die famous? And this is kind of some of this Jeffrey Dahmer talk and all those other, notorious killers and stuff, where it's like people start doing these mass acts of immoral themes, but why? And it's like because of some of the attention coming back. So that's an awkward little sidewalk tangent. My point to the real point of this is this Leo energy has the ability to transmute the dark. And you think about the sun, and it's like what's surrounded by the sun? Space, the void,
mhm.
blackness. Yeah, you got these stars here and there, blah 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 blah. You got other planets, you got moons, but at the end of the day, most of space is just this black void of nothing. And Leo is the sun. It's just this one very obvious indicator of light. And I
Mhm.
start realizing Leo doesn't really transmute light. Leo transmutes the dark energy all around it. And same thing with Scorpio. Scorpio doesn't transmute the darkness. It transmutes that little speck of light that is trying to dig deep to get to, aka the purity of its soul. And so when I
Mm.
started understanding the two switch of this, like if I didn't think, and I would just think, okay, Leo transmutes the light. That would if I did not think. But it's like even Leo in his exaltation of Neptune. What's Pisces? What's Neptune? It's the it's this portal of like God knows we don't know what the substance is, right? Like at the end of the day, it's always changing from a solid water to a liquid water, and it's like, well, what is a liquid water? And it's like, oh, what is a solid liquid? And it's like, oh, now it's a gas, and it's like it's just continuously transforming. But at the end of the day, it's infinite. So my point of saying this is like when I look at this Pluto retrograde, a lot of what I feel like the opposition is bringing is like us no longer looking at bad energy and being like, oh no, I can't do that. That's bad energy. Now it's like, you know what? Well, if I came on the world stage to be a leader and to walk people through this spiritual warfare, well, why would I walk away from somebody who obviously needs assistance, who obviously needs support, who I know very clearly, like if I put my foot forward, I can help to transmute energy. Energy. Not good, not bad. Energy
Mm.
towards where we're going. And it's like, this is one of the things I think the opposition is bringing out is going to really show who's in it, for the long haul, as well as for real support and who's in it for attention, for clout, fame, and who's doing it just because they're doing it because their heart says, this is what you should do. This is what we want to do. We've gone through our own internal work and align with our heart power where now a solid heart, a pure heart can transmute any frequency. It doesn't matter. It's beyond good and bad. It's beyond this moral sense of blah blah blah. And I find this is one of the things that's happened in major.
Yeah. So first thing is in the beginning you asked you don't know what sparked this, and I think that was my random like third option Leo retrograde comment that sparked this. But the other thing that
Mm-hmm.
I think is interesting is that like no pun intended. Whatchamacallit. The other thing that I think that's interesting is like while we're all going through this, I feel like it's really important to note that like we're experiencing this through like the first like global sense of culture. Like this is our first time like in recent history at least that we're experiencing a global culture. Like everybody's kind of going through all this at the same time, you know?
Mm.
And, like I find that interesting to take note of, especially when going through that, because it's like what does because like well and this is kind of touching back on like the Pluto retrograde of where it's just like it's going back to removing a sense of like the global currency that kind of underpinned everything, but
Mm-hmm.
Pluto is power and control as well as transformation. So what are
Mm-hmm.
we transmuting that like whole global like that global wave of energy into, which is what you said of like, well, I mean, your whole vibe kind of like creating an economy of harmony. So what is the
Sure.
new energy exchange that we're going to be going through in terms of that like global understanding? And everybody's like worried about like BRICS and like de-dollarization and stuff like that, but like I don't know, I think it's going to be something that we've never seen before. So I
It's
don't know.
gonna be something we've never seen. It's gonna be
Yeah,
something.
I think it's going to
BRICS,
be a whole lot.
de-dollarization. This is a step.
Mhm,
This is a phase, right?
mhm.
Like this is a step. It's a phase, and I feel like it was important to announce like what people can do because no matter what, fear is a very low energy, and it's
Yeah.
like it can be used positively because at the end of the day, human beings from a genetic level, fear and anger are like two of our main drives. Like we're driven by fear. Am I going to be able to pay my rent? Am I going to get my dog washed? Am I going to blah 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 blah? There's all this fear and anxiety, and it really makes us sick,
Mhm.
right? It really makes us so sick as such a it's just low. But so we gotta I feel like we have to respect that fear. People do go through the fear of, well, I live in the States and my dollar is going to be worth nothing. And I feel like it's something that's important to respect because I've been to Colombia, for example,
Mhm.
and I watched the bordering country, Venezuela, lose their dollar to the point where they're giving away thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and it's worth zilch. That is a real fear. Like it can genuinely happen, and it has in many economies. Now, at the same time, the US is not no punk. And this is one of the big major things. Like the US is not gonna roll over in the same way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they're not this is so what you said is really still on point of like at the end of the day, like it does suck. I won't lie. My dollar is worth way less. I gave the example the other day, like the last time I took money out the bank, I got $130 less for taking the same amount out.
Damn.
That sucks. That sucks. And I'm in Mexico. That sucks. That's not. I don't enjoy that. You know, I could use $130 on anything. You know what I mean? Anything. Like too many things. I mean, crap, this platform that I'm using costs $250. That would have been at least half the platform, right? So it's like, and that's just to take the money out. That's not I'm not getting anything and taking out my money. So that does suck. But what you said is long doing is stifle. You know what I'm saying? Like it's pinned down forever. It's trying to get us to transform one of the differences in the world, which is money. At the end of the day, if money no longer existed, the entire world would be unrecognizable.
For sure.
No one, yeah, no, it was unrecognizable.
That's where we get into like magic squares and how people certain groups structured societies. That's a whole other thing. But well, yeah, and then that really kind of like underpins like the value of Saturn in a way. And I think like, you know, like Pluto and Aquarius in some weird way will be showing us the true value in like what Saturn has to offer us and what that masculine energy from Saturn like shows us. Like it gives you stubborn certainty. Like, so what you said, like with in a world without like money and us like not understanding how we really like transact and really like exchange energy in a physical form, it's like, what would that look like? And then Saturn doesn't care. Saturn can just sit back and laugh and be like, ha, you figured that one out, bro. You know what I'm saying? So it's like in some weird ways, it's like the Pluto and Aquarius transit is really going to show us a lot of value. And I think like we're going to see a new like specifically when Pluto goes direct and like in 2024, once it finally crosses into that second degree of Aquarius, I think we're really going to see a strong push forward into like people really valuing and paying attention to spiritual ideals, because at that specific degree, we're going to be moving Pluto into the Aquila constellation, which is going to be specifically angling this star known as Altair. Now, for everybody that played Assassin's Creed, you know all about Altair, same vibe as the star. But basically, for those who don't know, what that does is it's like spiritual warfare, spiritual strength, spiritual ideas. And it's all that Aquarius energy, but specifically directed for spirituality, which, you know, if you want to look at the broad astrological version of it, obviously it's the cusp of, you know, of Capricorn and you know, Capricorn and Aquarius. So it's all about like what people gain strength from in terms of their ideologies and how they rejoin people and all that stuff. Being that if you want to go back in history and really look at how, you know, the Vatican and whatever religion across the world you want to pick ruled over society and had power over society for so long. So it's like you can really talk about that and say it's the Aquarius, Pisces cusp all you want. But really, at the end of the day, Saturn was giving its energy through religion for the most part of like society in the past 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years, however far you want to go back. I know it doesn't exactly go past 5,000 through the whole other reasons of maybe potential floods or whatever reasons. But people were out here trying, and it was going through religion. So it's really going to be interesting where that power shifts forward in the next time, because in our recent history, that was through money. Will it shift back to spirituality? Will it shift back to religion? Not exactly, but it will look similar to that. So it's important to pay attention to the energy of what that brought and how to position yourself accordingly if power is your goal. Because if we're really getting into like nothing's good, nothing's bad, it's just energy transmutation, you really got to figure out what your intentions are and where you want to position yourself for that flow to direct it as you wish, because that's what Aquarius does at the end of the day.
What does this mean right here? Mercury conjuncting Altair.
I mean, if that man be speaking about spirituality and really be making things happen, he's going to have some strength behind it. Like, it is what it is. Like, you're here for a reason. That might be the reason. This is why you're thinking along these lines of, I wouldn't exactly say spiritual warfare just yet, although we could get into that at a later date. But, you know, you're here fighting for people's minds, and you're probably, I don't want to say like the equivalent of that like old vegan lady on TikTok when it comes to your mentality towards spirituality, but you're not really going to let people go without thinking about it.
So, you know, I was checking real quick, where does Pluto go after? From you had it from the star standpoint?
Yeah.
And what you said is lined right back up with human design gene keys. It hits gate 41, where the shadow frequency of this is actually considered fantasy, which is funny because I think I put that on that or whatever. And it's like the fantasy of like, okay, I got this dream, right? I got this
Yeah.
dream. I got these futuristic 11th house Aquarian goals. I got these hopes, right?
Mhm.
Of what I want community to look like, of what I want my own dreams and what my own contribution to look like. Okay. But it's like, well, do you meet that with any form of action? Right. And that's gonna
Mm.
be after it hits the 2 degrees. And where you kind of work in the frequency that it push you brings you forward and is actually considered anticipation.
Mm.
And it speaks about how anticipation is very much misinterpreted, but a lot of it is like being able to use what you just said about the Pope and 5,000 years ago, being able to look at the past, basically,
Mhm.
right? Saturnian influence again, being able to look at the past and realize, well, what's the loop? What's the cycle? How has the snake continuously bitten its tail, Ouroboros,
Mm.
right? And this is kind of where you start working into this higher frequency, which would be like emanation. And it's like, okay, look, well, this death rebirth, this Ouroboros, it will continue to bite its own tail. The head always bites the tail eventually. So if you just, it's kind of being able to realize that now, when I look at the Pluto in this next stage after 2 degrees, which is like after February 2024, I think, we're
Yeah.
all going to start to have to come to terms with where do we just stay in fantasy. And we're like, yo, we want these things to happen, but like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? It'd be
Mhm.
something like me saying, I want to create a tribe, but did I create a membership? I actually have this next gate of 41. I have actually the 60 where we're at now in Pluto, and I have the 41, both my
Mm.
Aquariuses. Um, and it's really interesting because I've seen it in my real life, and it's like I spent a lot of time thinking, let's say for tribe community, before I had a membership, I was like, man, like I really wish that, and I externalized this. I didn't see it internally. I externalized. I really wish that I had a tribe. Like, I'd be having weird ass thoughts. Like, I'd be really not knowing. I'd be really wishing that somebody can have these discussions and conversations with me, but everywhere I go, I can't really have them. And that was the fantasy stage for
Mhm.
me, where it's like, well, what was I doing to make any of that come true? Like, what ideas were I flirting with and actually, taking action on?
Mhm.
And this is what I feel like happens after when it hits past 2 degrees for like 5, 6 degrees or so. And then it hits this point where, like, okay, cool. Now you can start to anticipate what that success looks like. You can start to anticipate, what comes next. And you'll start to have premonitions. I really feel like by February 2024 and beyond, that year 2024, we're going to start having very clear psychic premonitions that are going to come through, and they're going to be like so undeniable. You're not going to be able to be like, oh no, this is not the way. And it's kind of already happening now. The synchronicities are already happening now. But at this
Yeah.
point, it's going to be the point where you're going to start to embrace that, you know what? It's okay to be misinterpreted. And this is where I feel like the real power begins to happen, because once any of us in the chat, any of us listening, once we stop caring about being our ideas or our hopes and our dreams being misrepresented or interpreted in a way that we didn't mean, well, guess what? It allows us to get the fuck out of the fantasy and start working on it, because I know what it means. The people that I associate knows what it means. So I'm no longer trying to fight with, and I was going to say Joe Schmo, but
It's okay.
I'm no longer trying to fight with the person who don't speak my language, who don't
Mhm.
resonate with me, who wants to continuously interpret it because they don't want to step out of their little shell. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's convenient for people to just stay in the fantasy base and realize, like, okay, look, I'm just going to allow this to continue to distract me, because now I don't need to do anything and I get to blame people. And I feel
Mm.
like this is one of the big things going to happen, where that power struggle of, you know, um, just not doing a deeper psychological look, not taking a deeper psychological look at the premonitions you've always had, at the way that life always does this wheel and circle, until we eventually completely transcend the circle and realize I don't even need to bite the tail anymore. These are just concepts for the human mind to understand existence and polarities and blah blah blah. But once you really align with your spirit, there's no more discussion. You allow yourself to just be misunderstood. And you start realizing they'll catch up or they won't.
The or they won't always kills me.
It's like, or they won't. And it's like, look, there's no time for that. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like it's going to get to that point, because Scorpio has a lot to do with time, and including Pluto in this instance. And it's like, when I say time, it's like we all
Yeah, can
start
you
getting
really
to the
dive
point
into
where
that? Like, I'm curious about that.
so the death card, for example, it has to do with
Mm,
time and like involuntary change. Keyword involuntary, which is
mm,
like, look,
never
like,
seen about
you
that.
know, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like when transformations occur, the time, the pressure from Pluto, it equates to something like I'm coming to terms with my morality, aka I'm going to die.
Mm,
And once you start really getting and coming to terms with the fact that I'm going to die, there's a different kind of pressure that forces you to want to transform because you're like, I'm running out of time. Because now I have all these ideas, I've had all these fantasies, I've had all these dreams, but they're not coming true. And then death is a great motivator. It's a tremendous motivator. If I'm a Scorpio rising, for example, and I have mine's at 23 degrees, aka Aquarius, right? And it's like when I looked at my hopes and dreams, it was about 16 years old. I remember feeling like I was going to die all the time. I felt like I honestly had a little grim reaper on my shoulder. But most
damn.
of it was because I was ignoring that I was a shaman. That's one major, major theme behind it. And I still ignored it until like 20, 26 years old. So that's
Oh
like
wow.
10 more years that I pressed ignore. Right. But then the day, it was like time as I got older, I started realizing, yo, Pernell, you have this you have this cosmic purpose that you have to fulfill. Like you didn't incarnate just to dick around. Like you have things to do, you have people to lead, you have,
Mhm.
moments to guide. And eventually it was like that pressure, death, the realization of I'm going to die before I travel the world got me to get on a plane to Asia.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like at a certain point, like I was just dreaming and hoping that I was just gonna get to Asia, and I was hoping that people that I was working for were going to, set up shop because they could, because they had the money to do it. That they were going to set shops up in California for me. They were going to set shops up, and then from California, I was going to get from California. It was this fantasy in my head. From California, they're gonna then open one up in Asia, or they're gonna open up one up in Europe, or somewhere international. Because my dream, 11th house, was to go abroad to be abroad, to get on a plane and experience culture. That was a dream for me at a point. But that was never going to come true just because I wished it. And
mhm.
this is one of the major things I feel like by time Pluto hits after February 2024, we're going to come to terms with that. And we're going to realize that, look, we're going to die. And it was that same feeling that I'm going to die before I left my own home state, being Connecticut. That fear within itself got me to transform. It got me to say, you know what, I need to get stuff together. And so this is way before quarantine 2020. This is like 2016 at the time frame. And
Oh
it's
man.
like,
Oh.
yeah, this is like 2016 at the time frame. I'm like, look, Pernell, you need to go set up a business because you can't expect to go live abroad and not have some sense of income. At my mind at the time, it was just that simple. And so I was like,
Mhm.
okay, well, what are you going to do? Eventually, I just began coaching people and blah, 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 blah. And that set me up to give me the confidence to say, look, I've done something that is valuable.
Mhm.
And this pressure that I'm going to die. And when I say this, I'm using the word die because it's actually real. Like, I think in 2016, it was my sister's birthday. It was August 31st in 2016. I lost my job, which was the security at the time frame, on my sister's birthday, and I watched a man die that same night by a gunshot.
What the fuck?
He died an arm's length from me. Not only that, but arm's length from me was my roommate, and my roommate sat here, I sat here, and the guy in the middle of the two of us died by a drive-by shooting.
Oh
That was the reality.
damn.
That this guy, and I just had this mindset of like, yo, this guy's aim is not so good that he's driving in a car and he just hit exactly who he was trying to hit, and that he just didn't hit me or my roommate just because his aim was so good. Like part of my mind was like, no. And I was like, I could have been the one. And it
Mhm.
was just that pressure of death. Like death had to literally show up at the front door. The death of my job, the death of an actual person that I held as he died, that I didn't even know, right? It's like death is a beautiful transformation and motivator. It is something that will get us to move. And so, again, my point being, usually that morality the fact that life, you're going to die before you achieve your goals, it will start to push you. This is the midlife crisis of Scorpio. This is 35 to 45 years of age. People are like, okay, my God, I've had kids, I got the job, I did this, and I did a whole bunch of compromising. And what I did not do is follow what was pure to me. And I feel like this is what, when you add Pluto's element and its relationship to Scorpio, but you put it in the hopes and dream center of Aquarius, this is what it's coming down to. It's going to bring near life death experiences. And it doesn't have to be a physical body dying. It could be, again, the death of a job that you thought you were always going to have, the death of a marriage that you thought you were always going to have, something you probably thought you always were going to have and was secure, be snatched away from us. And that will motivate our dreams because we're going to come.
Dang it. He's always freezing on when he's doing something good. Stop freezing. Stop freezing. He's going on a good tangent. Man, anyways, when I come back, I looked up the star of his ascendant at 23 degrees of Scorpio, and it's the knee of the Sagittarius constellation. So no wonder he found his status when he finally traveled. I don't want to talk to him about that, but he was going on a good tangent. Damn. Of course, this comes on a tangent. Can you guys still see me? Yeah, I think you can. No! Work, internet. I want him to come back. He was going on a tangent. I was getting enthralled in the story. Let me answer if he's still on. Oh, he's back. There he is.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. I think we just ripped it. Yeah, I'm here. You can hear me clearly?
I was just saying about your story theme. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. What's up, Vanessa? How you doing? What's up, Uraeus? It's good to see y'all all in here. Thank y'all all for hitting the thumbs up. Maybe I hit the point and everybody heard what they needed to hear.
I know, but I like hearing it. It was cool. You were flowing.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if I tried to wrap that whole thing up into one sentence, I would say this. If there's anything I learned from that, it's that I ignored my destiny long enough that I had to see somebody die to move. Damn. That's the simplicity. And that was around, like I said, 25, 26 years old, something like that. That was the simplicity. And if I had anything to give because of that, from that experience, it's don't wait that long. It's not necessary. like in one way, I am a Scorpio rising. Like, these are the things that get me myself to transform, like just the Ouroboros, death situations. But at the end of the day, there's what I feel the experience was for was to give to other people to realize you don't need to wait for something so cataclysmic to happen in order for you to start activating your dreams, to take it from a place of fantasy and then bring it into reality. And I start realizing like real leadership is to actually be able to live in a delusion and then make that delusion real. Like to be able to allow yourself to dream and take that dream from something that's just a dream, just a delusion, and turn it into a real concept. It's possible. And I feel like, like I said, Pluto and Aquarius is going to all the people, Aquarius, is going to bring some form of death of something you care about. Something you care about to urge you to start pursuing that dream, because that dream, that hope, it's more than something that's necessary to become a reality. It's literally for the collective upliftment of consciousness. So we can all get back to a state of pure consciousness.
I mean, I think that's pretty interesting. But something you talked about before, like way before the whole like deep scorpionicness, was you were just talking about like getting the group together, right? And I feel like that's kind of interesting, especially with the like opposition that we're literally talking about. Because in some weird way, you needed to let go of your vision, go through all this to find that group. Not necessarily play like power, but to help them transform and really grow. You know what I'm saying? I just found that interesting of how it's just like time and time again. We should probably even like one of these days somebody may even look through all the actual timestamps and for the little tropes that we just discussed that actually were a direct reflection of the opposition we experience. Oh, and I don't know if you heard. Well, you had a little connection issue, but when you said the degree of your ascendant, I actually I looked up what star that actually angles, and it ended up being the Neid Sagittarius constellation. So I found it interesting that through the pursuit of travel, you found your status. Because the Neids are correlated to the 10th house and all that stuff.
I fully resonate with that. I mean, I left, like I said, it's been about 5-6 years. I'm losing track. It was one of the two that I've been out of the States, and
it's a good place to be.
Yo, I'm really gonna look that up a little bit more than the Neo Sagittarius, because it's like when I think about it, it's
called Aegina.
Aegina?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna type it. Like,
I can just send you the link.
Sweet. When I look at it, when you talk the fact that we're talking about Sagittarius, right? It's like it's the people that I met that didn't speak much, who were like these mystical beings. I swear to God. There's one woman I'm thinking about. She did sound therapy, and she lived in my apartment complex. She would eat with no seasoning. She was like, I don't do salt, I don't do pepper, I don't do nothing. She would cook a slab of fish, and it would just be the fish. She ate very simple, and it was like she was a strange woman in a lot of ways, but in other ways, I can kind of feel her, and I was like, there's something about her that's just hella mystical. And she did these sound healings and stuff like this, and people will be purging and throwing up and vomiting from sound healings. It's these kind of experiences though, while traveling, that started reminding me of whatever the shaman is within me. And I met a whole bunch of women like her in so many different countries. She was hardcore for sure. I remember looking at her like, yo, lady, nah. And the craziest thing is, nowadays, I find my body is the same. I find this is the funny thing. It took years, but now my body is starting to turn the same way. And I can't stop thinking about her, because now my body is rejecting a lot of stuff. It's not allowing me certain spices anymore. My stomach is not able to handle tomato sauce, even if it's real tomato sauce. It's just becoming too acidic. It's getting weird. My body is responding in very, very weird ways. I think it's a lot of this Uranus and Taurus stuff. The way it's hitting me, it's just it's changing what my body needs from a food standpoint altogether.
I mean, it's our 6th house,
Boom.
That's your intestines right there. It's
going. Oh my God, it's getting me. I'm getting got.
I literally one thing that's interesting about that is I always love people like that, because it's I like to equate them to a hole in the wall restaurant of you're the decor is shit, and it equates to that person's fucking weird. But that doesn't mean I don't like them or they're not valuable in any way.
Sure.
They're just they're just not compromising themselves and their mystical abilities to act regular. You know what I'm saying? And
that's what it is.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think there's something to be said for no matter which side you pick, but I mean, obviously there's always some value to adapt and correlate for the purposes of just sharing your vision, but I don't know, I just it's such a weird dynamic to walk in terms of it. And I think that's really going to come out in Pluto Aquarius, where it's just you're either going to find a lot of power in your individuality amongst who you associate with, or you're going to find the opposite. And that's I don't know, I think that really ties it back into what we all started this about, where it's just where I guess you kind of started it in the space of the Venus, not Venus and Leo, Mars and Leo side of things is going to be why can't you just be me, mom? I want to be me. And it's that type of thing versus this the more sage person that kind of just accepts that they don't need power to attain what they want,
Right.
Which just I don't know, I find that dynamic just interesting. It's always so interesting.
No, you said it, and what it brought me back to was those days I talked about of fighting. And I started realizing there's two things I realized. I was like, Pernell, one day you're gonna fight somebody that you can't beat. No.
You quit while you were ahead that time.
I quit while I was ahead. No, it didn't happen. But I always laugh because there's this one instance in high school. My coach, I played lacrosse, and my coach, we were in automotives class, the last period before we all go home. And my coach is in the room, and there was this guy named Donald Wilkerson. He's the only one. It took me so long. I still feel like part of me never got over it. he was sleeping behind me on his desk. He was like sleep like this, and I was being a Gemini jokester, and I like slammed the book to like wake him up, and he woke up and he punched me in my nose. Man, I was fire. I was fire mad, and I was like, "It's over." And at the moment, my coach, he literally looked at me, and we were like going to state finals. And again, this is the Leo years, right? Like this is the 14 and 20. These are Leo years of popularity, sports, yada yada. And he was like, he looked at me, he was like, "Sit down." And I respected him. Like when I look at Leo fifth house, these also speak about our heroes, our role models, and like I didn't respect a lot of people, quite frankly, especially
Oh,
not
I
men during
understand
that.
that.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't respect a lot of people.
Scorpio ascendant, like you're just constantly unimpressed.
Yeah, like he was one of the impressive male figures in my life. Like, I mean, he had my respect, like almost like a father figure. And he told me, he was like, he's like, we got stuff to do. And he said the S word because that's who he was. He's like, we got stuff to do. He's like, you handle your business outside of school. That's what he said. And this is in front of the other teacher, the actual teacher of the class. He's saying this in front. He's like, you handle your stuff outside of school. And so the teacher tells this kid, Donald, he said, hey, you leave now. It was like 5 minutes before the bell. And they're like, Pernell, you stay. Because they just saw it. I was fuming. And so now my mindset shifted. And I was like, when that bell rings, I'm hunting this mother. And it's just what it was, who I was. So point being, he was the one that got me. If there was anybody, it was this situation. And I never found him for like 3-4 days. He literally, I couldn't find him.
That's good.
And point being, it was these kind of experiences. I know it was great. I'm happy when I look at this as an adult. It's these experiences that it was this and a couple other experiences. Like I said, the other time when I was like, look, Pernell, you got to stop because one day somebody's going to get you. Like it was this reality coming in. And I realized, like, you know, power isn't in your ability to whoop somebody's ass. And if I'm being honest, I didn't always believe that. And there was some part of me that was hiding insecurities in the midst of that. And I had to kind of come to terms with that. Like, what insecurities am I hiding? Now, when I look at this full circle, it kind of is this understanding of like power is the ability to take this how you want. Power is in this instance, in this particular example, is being able to take on the world and literally burn it down. Kind of like you were saying earlier with your Aries fifth house. I have gone through that and I've felt that very intensely. But being able to do it and choosing not to. And that was the power part that I learned to overall kind of align with. It's like being able to have that strength or that power and actually choosing to stand down, choosing a different path. Like not needing to exert myself in this manner, but instead to shift that strength, shift that power, and put it into, at least today, a creative expression, a creative project, to put it into, you know, building a tribe or a community. Things that take a tremendous amount of force to get up off the ground.
Yeah.
And that ultimately, when I realized it was like the shifting of power. It's like, look, that was my distraction. You know, like going head first, going fist first, talk later. That was my distraction. And it was my way of avoiding the deeper parts of my destiny. You know, the deeper parts of my purpose. Because it's like, as long as I'm doing that, I'm actually sabotaging myself. I'm not getting anywhere. And so I don't know where the hell that came from or what part of the tangent, but I found something was said and it brought me to that. And it's like, I feel like all of us are going to go through these shifts and understanding of what power is and what power means. And when we do get there, how do we use it? And I think one of the major powers with Aquarius is going to be social currency, right? Like not in the Libra or the Capricornian sense of like, you know, who you know and how you use who and what you know, but more in a sense of like, if I look at this from the standpoint of I'm already letting go and not being owned by the status achieved, how can I just give from the heart and truly look for nothing in return. Like to go beyond the Libra format of Saturn and not look for win-win situations,
Mhm.
but to realize like I'm okay with myself. I'm happy with what I've done in my life. I can just let somebody else win. Period. Just because it feels good in my heart.
Well,
I don't need something in return, huh?
I think this is like kind of going into like really, really breaking down like the spiritual essence of what power is. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, are you looking for a return? What's like, it's like there's no like just this overlay of Aquarius energy from Pluto is really going to remove the concept in like a general sense and a cultural understanding of what is good and what is bad, and then flipping it to a sense of what is the most efficient way to direct your energy in a way that gets you to consciously experience what you want, right? That's like the true essence of power that I think we're kind of getting at here, being able to consciously experience what you want, despite the level of leverage it may take, despite the level of efficiency it may take, despite the level of action it may take you, really, really isolating what you want and focusing all of your energy, attention, and frequency on nothing but that. And if that manifests as what you stated for you, that's what it is for you. And if it manifested itself as a form of, utilizing and manifesting and creating your own form of currency that takes over all other currencies, and you just magically own the world currency, and then you're the rich, you can Mansa Musa on everybody, like, then that's what it is for you. You know what I'm saying? But the
Mm.
whole point is really identifying your intention and being able to recognize, does this align with me? Is this what I want? Can I consciously experience this? And if so, how am I going about it? And I think, like, it's really going to reshape a lot of things in this world. It's really going to reshape like how people live. It's going to reshape everything. But it's all starting from within, which is what everybody always talked about. And I think it's just going to be like the first like real instance of like, okay, we're going to see it. People are flying their modular home on a hoverboard. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, you said something that made me think when you said remove. And that
Mhm.
was the key word. I really felt I had to type it to not forget. It'll remove the mind as the lead, you know,
Yeah.
and it'll bring us closer to our heart space. Because when we look at it, right, like we know Leo is the heart frequency. And we don't think of it as much as a mental sign. We think of Aquarius as a mental sign who, in certain efforts, they lack heart. Not in
Oh, okay.
all,
Bringing up that topic. One
right?
second.
Like they
I
lack,
gotta
they
think
lack,
what this is.
they are, and then when I say lack heart, I'm saying like they're like choosing only the mental process and forgetting about their shadow aspect of Leo being the heart of like, okay, well, this makes sense on paper. This concept, this idea makes sense intellectually speaking, but did I include the heart in this decision? Did I include the heart in this brain map, in this brainstorm? And it's like this is one of the big things I feel like Pluto and Aquarius will help us do. It help us transform as a collective how we operate in the mental body, or what will be considered the 3D, and it'll
Mm.
get us to operate. It's kind of part of the transformation that we need in order to get more into the causal realm or the 4Ds, where it's like, okay, in our physical body, we can align and resonate with the heart frequency and still allow the mind to guide when it's useful, but not when it's not. And I say that because I feel like, in our heads, we really let our mental processing get the best of us most times, whether through worry or anxiety about X, Y, or Z. And it's like, I feel like this transit will really help us in this opposition as well to start taking heartfelt action, not thinking about what is it going to get me? Where is it going? How is this going to, you know, support my mastermind plan, my concept? The Aquarius is like, look, create the structure, create the mastermind concept. But Leo is like, but act from the heart anyways. Relate with others from a heart space anyways. And like, if we can do that, I feel like ultimately this is the kind of transformation we need to evolve beyond the mental body.
Oh, sweet. I was literally about to type the point out. I wanted to remember. But yeah, it's interesting you say that because when we're actually like to jump forward a little bit, when we're talking about the Venus retrograde,
Mhm.
Venus goes retrograde directly before conjuncting Regulus, aka the heart of the Leo constellation, one of the four royal fixed stars, the star correlated to the Archangel Raphael, the regulator, right? And
What degree is it at right now?
right now,
Regulus.
Regulus is at like 28, 29 degrees. Leo, I thought you were
Okay,
asking
cool.
specific.
Of Leo.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So and Venus goes retrograde at 28 degrees, like literally right before it, right? So it's gonna be like really interesting because it's gonna be like, we're getting there. This is what passions are true aligned with you, and then nope, smack you right back into your old past passions for you to be like, oh damn, I thought we were getting somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And it's gonna be interesting because it's kind of gonna be like with like everything in life. Because if you thought last retrograde season was hard with at most 6 planets in retrograde, we will be having a period at the end of the summer where there are 7 planets in retrograde. So, in a low vibrational sense, yeah, for lack of a better term, if you're riding on that low frequency, you're fucked, But in a higher vibrational sense, if you choose to look out and really open up your mind in terms of why we are reflecting on these degrees, you'll be good. And we will be here to help you do that. So don't just be like, oh, retrograde means stop. Don't do that. So just like basically, but back to the original point. Venus in Leo regulating that, it's basically going to be walking you through all the steps that you're going to need, like as we discussed in terms of like healing your passion and really having that moment to like be yourself and be your individual aspect and really dive into that sense of like identity that you were searching for from youth. But basically, so the jailer just said she'll be sky high.
I love Venus and Leo.
I know, right?
We're listening.
No, I got you. I was about to make a Ben Affleck joke, but whatchamacallit. But yeah. So it's basically going to walk you all the way through that, and then basically what's going to happen is either a past passion from that moment in time of that person who you may have been back in that space where you identified with that full aspect of yourself of you really being an individual, whether that being with an ex you like, whether that being with an old habit that you really liked, whether that being with an old friend or partner that you used to like. That person or that entity and that energy will probably come back to you the same way that like the whatever thoughts you're having because it's going to be around the let me remember. So Pluto officially enters Capricorn back on June 11th, and then it goes direct on October 10th, right? And I've always seen the numbers 1010, especially when they pop up as angel numbers, as get back to work, you dumbass. But they're just personally. But basically, like with that being the case, okay, so during the Leo retrograde, Pluto will be retrograde at Capricorn. Damn, straight up. Oh man, that's gonna be interesting. But the point being is like while you're in that moment of reconsidering your past status and what that means to you, all of those past passions and past pleasures that you potentially came from that will be pulling up, trying to pull you back. And like there's going to be a lot more going on because around that time specifically, there will be 4 or 5 other planets retrograde because, there's just going to be so many retrogrades really sitting you back being like, this is who you used to be. Don't do that or keep doing, or it's up to you, figure that out. But it's just going to be so interesting to see how like, I don't know. It's like, personally, I'm going to have an interesting time watching people who are a little like less aware, like go through that just because I'll be curious about what they decide and who's going to be coming forward and who's going to not, kind of like you said. And like, I mean, I can't say that's like a good thing. It'll be really just a distraction from my own pain and more or less Gemini, just nonsense. But, whatchamacallit. But like, all right, now I'm getting too broad here. What popped out to you?
In truth, I was looking at running a retreat later in the year. So in truth, I was thinking to myself, I wonder how these retrogrades, these 7, will hit in, will tap into that retreat frequency. That was the truth. Like that's where my mind, huh?
That's like the perfect time for a retrograde, at least in my opinion.
Well, I'm happy to hear that because October was the month that we were really considering. So at this point now, I'm just working the logistics behind the scene.
You thinking about having a retreat smack dab in Scorpio season amongst the retrogrades? That's like the best idea ever.
Astro Shaman, I'm not here for the jokes and the games. So like I'm trying to really bring people through some stuff. I'm like let's do this. So
that sounds like
absolutely. I mean, it's definitely. Scorpio season is always the deepest healings. I mean, in my personal opinion, like
for sure.
Like, if I think about this last one, how this hit me in November, these eclipses, bro. You saw how my eyes went twinkle twinkle. The last one, I mean, I think it won't be as bad this year, quite frankly. I mean, I'm Scorpio rising. It'd be quicker, yeah. Like
It's gonna
all the
hit harder
Scorpio
really
stuff
quick.
was way too. Those eclipses was just like, okay, come on, bro.
Do you know how many people got divorced? I can think of
I've
7
seen
right now.
so many divorces. I'm still seeing so many divorces.
Mhm.
Um, because during this time frame, South Node was going Libra, no? So how many more marriages are being let go?
Oh God.
How many more relationships are going to be on the fringe because people are basically questioning their integrity and they're looking at like, damn, when did I compromise so deeply that I lost myself? And that's going to be a very
Damn.
um that's what's happening. They're gonna be like, yo, when did I
I
compromise
know.
so much that I lost myself? And I've seen this theme in my life that like what I just said, it happened to me. And I've seen this theme that all these things happen to me just enough time before they happen to the world. Like just
Mhm.
enough time before they happen to the world so that I can like figure out for myself before it happens to others, well, how the hell am I gonna walk them through this? And I feel like for me, the best I can explain that is just me being a 5 line and human design as that whole heretic is like, well, the experience was there. Like I had to walk through this and I had to figure this out. And that's how I can walk other people through it when it comes. And so that's a big one. I can tell you right now that it's like when I had to come to terms with when did I compromise in relationships and basically give up my joy in order to make the partner that I was with happy enough because they weren't even really happy. They were still miserable and I wasn't miserable. You know what I mean? So I say happy enough on false pretense, literally like to the point of everyone getting to the point where they no longer can tolerate. And I really feel like this is one of the next big things happening with um, Libra in the South Node, because once Aries goes in that lead position, I mean, like I'm not sure if you're familiar with Rahu in the Vedic sense, but it's like Rahu or North Node. It also amplifies the low frequencies in order to get us aligned with where we're going. So it's not as simple as, oh, the North Node's in Taurus, we're all getting towards a simpler life and a simpler existence. It's like, no, greed will come in your face and it will show you why you need that simpler existence. You know what I'm saying? It'll show you why you should stop struggling with the concepts of your own worth and value, but it's going to bring your worth into question. It's going to bring your self-esteem into the limelight in a way that will challenge you. It doesn't happen by, oh, we're just magically gonna be there. So if I look at it from an Aries standpoint in relationships, it's like, okay, damn, we're gonna have to face the reality that I've never chose myself first, and that I brought that BS narrative that being selfish it was a bad thing, and now I don't know how to be selfish enough, and
Sounds like
so
the
now
year
I'm
of
letting my
celibacy.
huh.
Sounds like the year of celibacy for me. Not for me personally, but like just it sounds like a lot of people are gonna be going that way. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, if I'm being honest, one of the best things that people could do is take a part-time celibacy. And I say part-time because the
What you mean, like
slingshot of,
9 to 5, or like for like a couple months?
I mean, like, at a personal level, you decide for yourself. Like, if I think about it for myself, I've made personal commitments and said, look, I'm taking a 3-month hiatus.
Mm.
I don't care if I'm with somebody or not. And it's the kind of simplicity of like thinking of it like, I don't know if this was Moses, so don't quote me, but I believe it was Moses or one of these prophet walking guys. They were like walking, and he told his wife, while I'm on this particular mission, I can't afford to have sex with you. It has nothing to do with my attraction. It has everything to do with I need to stay focused right now. And so, because it's like I'm leading somebody that's more than myself, I'm leading the people across enemy lines, across a walk of faith. And it's like a walk of faith requires presence.
Mm.
So, when I look at the North Node going to Aries, understand Aries is a lot of things. One of them is the snake's tongue, the tongue of the snake. So it has the ability to charm somebody's pants off. This is one of the Aryan themes. And literally by its speech, by talking, by its charm, by its innocence, just like literally its pure innocence, pure joy for life, and its pursuit for it as a sexual deviant, because it is a sexual deviant energy. It is still Mars, and we forget it's not Scorpio, so it didn't have the time. It's not taking the time to strategize how it's going to get in your panties. It's just getting in them. to, like today. It's like I'm gonna catch you off guard and get in there today, get it right now. But that has the North Node. It will show us pretty clearly like a consequence, to not maintaining your original impulses. All of us on the North Node, our impulses will come to the forefront, and they're going to show us which one of them are detrimental to the direction that we're actually taking and where we say we want to go, and how we're essentially not utilizing our life force energy in a way that gets us where we want to go. Life will bring people STDs in this time frame.
Damn.
It will bring STDs. I'm telling you right now, it will bring STDs. It will bring babies. It will bring an just an exponential amount of raw sex and non-committal sexual relationships on top of that, like literal one night stands. And it doesn't have to be one night, it could be 3 nights, but it's like they will come, and it's going to challenge what we say we want, and it's going to show us how we avoid deeper commitments with ourselves, which ultimately supports a lasting relationship. And that's going to be some major themes. So I know that's a whole different talk, but sexual energy is going to be everywhere once the North Node hits Aries. It's gonna rage, and you're gonna feel it. Everybody listen to this. You're gonna walk by people, and they're not even gonna say anything. You're just gonna feel it. They're gonna be like, "She wants to fuck me." It's the same thing, vice versa. He wants to. And you're gonna kind of get these like. It's gonna almost be like telekinetic. They're gonna communicate this to you where like it won't even be a conscious thing, because Aries is not a conscious symbol. And this is one of the main things to know about Aries. It's unconscious. It literally is not thinking. It's acting. It responds in the world to action. The world and the environment around it responds to the action that Aries takes. So it's like, I see somebody saying sacral authority. Yeah, like I have a sacral authority, and I could tell you this is definitely some of my younger college phases, especially that time frame when I'm in this heartbroken stage. And this is the major thing, because understand, when you break a marriage, when a marriage is in a South Node and it's being released and let go, and you've been married to this person for 15 years and you've basically forsaken your own individuality and your own personal freedom, which is why the marriage crashed. These are the times you must watch for the most, because this will be the most raw sexual passion. And we're just going to mingle with people with no thought, just the raw passion of, I have not touched another male in 16 years out of my devotion to this person. And now it's like getting one lick can turn into a sugar rush where it becomes cocaine. And now you just want to start sticking or humping any and everything. And it will happen likely at an uncontrollable rate. And we'll be forced to face ourselves, because Aries is one of the symbols that I don't think is spoken about much, but Aries is one of the symbols that really avoids, as adults, the deeper internal work, and it externalizes its sexual energy in matters like what I just said. That's one outcome. But ultimately, it's a part of not doing its own internal shadow work. Aries runs from shadow work. This is something I'm saying as an Aries myself. Aries runs from shadow work, until it doesn't.
Well, usually when it doesn't, the shadow is kind of gone. And I mean that in the sense of it's been externalized.
Say it again. The shadow's gone.
Yeah, because it's been externalized. There ain't nothing hiding it now. The sun's on it.
Right, but that externalization, it's still distracted. It still didn't have to do its internal work, because now, like this is why now more and more bodies start piling up, because it's like, if as long as I can keep catching new bodies, I never have to stop and see myself. It's only at the point when it gets completely exhausted and drained, and it realizes that I get no fulfillment from this, and it starts to feel dead inside, that it realizes I'm in Aries, or I have Aries energy, whatever, Mars, Venus, whatever, and I lost my light.
Damn.
And it's at that point when the Aries feels it lost its light, it lost its innocence, it lost its joy for life. That's when it starts to face its own personal shadow. That's a very different time frame. So in the meanwhile, that's the reason why so many bodies rack up.
Mm.
That's the reason why so many sexual encounters will happen. And mind you, again, these are people, I'm talking 10, 15 years of marriage. They have so much sexual, and people that's married that long don't have sex. So there's so much sexual energy pent up. They start hating their partner. They don't want to be touched by them. And they're not even really hating their partner. There's just so much rejection on so many levels, internally, externally. It's just so many levels of like, disgust within marriages at a sexual level, and the obligations take over. And they have kids, they have a home, they have bills, they have these things, and they will get so occupied by their responsibilities that they have this midlife crisis of sexual frustration. So these are going to be the main things I'm talking about. It's like, well, what happens when you go through years of sexual frustration? You stayed out of some false sense of loyalty. This is going to be very difficult energy for the world to process, because it will happen. It will still be a collective frequency, even if you're not the married person going through such things.
Ugh.
You might be the victim of that person coming out of the marriage, coming out of the relationship. You might be the one on the other side that gets dogged out. Exactly. Exactly. So, you might have literally been innocent in this whole process, but I mean, how innocent if you attract that frequency? I don't know. You wanted something.
Yeah.
You
And
wanted
you got
something. So
damn.
again, the time will come. The time will come. We'll talk about that. I love sex talks. I really do. I had a whole like year and a half where I did nothing but sex talks.
What the hell? How'd that happen?
It's like I said, all these things happen to me before it happens to the world. It's just how my
Mm,
life operates. It's how I'm able to walk people through when the time comes. The best
gotcha.
I can explain it is, I think J Lo would know this best. Um, I'm a 5 line.
Mm,
Like, in times of crisis, generals get called, and the 5 line is considered generals or leaders or heretics. So when crisis comes, the world looks for leadership
mm,
to that particular crisis. And at a certain point of my life, this was a crisis.
damn.
I'm not saying anything I just said is personal experience that has manifested somehow.
Mhm.
And it's me finding my way out of that loop.
That's crazy.
That's literally it's like me finding my way out of that loop.
Well, I guess on through all that conversation, what I'm kind of curious about is uh when the hell are all these alignments gonna chill out? Have you seen that yet, or are we still like got a couple years ahead of us?
Bro, the alignments are never gonna chill, yo.
I know, I know.
Not that I see. Not that I see. I feel
Yeah.
like the time that it chilled out was this Taurus season. This is Taurus seasons are your time that you get to rest. If I look at it, it's like Taurus season is probably Taurus and Cancer energies are the times that you get to chill. Cancer feels a little bit tougher in my opinion, because
I
it's
agree.
like you're more forced to introspect. But
Mhm,
Taurus season is like when you get to chill, you know? Maybe Libra season, again, you get to chill. These are these Venetian energies.
mhm,
But like at the end of the day, um, I feel like the only time it really gets to chill has nothing to do with the alignments. It's everything to do with like personal evolution of consciousness,
fair enough.
where it's like it's like I said, with this gate 56 in Leo, being
Mhm,
able to allow yourself to get to that drunken state and look at life as a skit, a play. When you get to see character roles, right? Like everybody in the chat is a character. They play a role. They add a certain sense of tragedy to the discussion, or a sense of comedy that allows us to relieve ourselves from really nothing. If I get into if it's to relieve ourselves from nothingness, like the boredom of nothingness, it's like, can we sit in the boredom of nothingness and still find joy and tragedy amusing? um you know
That's a
what I
statement
mean?
right there.
Yeah, so I feel like this is the bigger parts of it. In all sincerity, it's like, for me, if I look at it, um for a long time, like, I just took in other people's auric fields, and I didn't even realize what the hell was reality. In all sincerity, a lot of my life, like many years of my life, I did not understand my own personal reality. I was just so engulfed. And that never really brought me peace. What brought peace was like when I recognized that I wasn't, and then working on my own reality and like how I actually see the world. And in my reality, how I see the world, it really is a fun place to be.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a very fun place to be. There are moments that are dull and boring, but I've learned to embrace those dull, boring moments because they're very important. Um, without those dull, boring moments, and without being able to embrace the dull, boring moments, uh, what happens is chaos, literal chaos,
That's true.
where it's like you start creating trouble just out of boredom,
Yeah.
like just out of like, I don't know how to sit in nothing. And it's like when you ask like, so again, I don't think it's a transit thing when things chill out. It's when I think we can sit in the chaos, sit in the boredom, sit in the middle of a death and just be cool. Like literally realize that, again, detachment is not that you own nothing, that nothing owns you. So
Mhm.
it's like, when somebody dies, like that person death no longer owns me. So I can sit and hold this man and love him as myself and not be attached to it. Now, at the time frame when that happened in real life, that was not the scenario. It haunted me. But it's
Yeah.
that experience that, working through how it haunted me that helped me realize, that he was a fiction of my imagination. I literally needed to create him in order to understand the illusion, the
That's
separation gap, you know, and realize that, like, look, I just externalized somehow that he's dying, but I was dying. I was transforming my entire identity. I was disintegrating my identity at that framework of life. I was leaving the spaces of exercise as we know it. And at the time, I stepped into personal development, which eventually became astrology and everything else you see now. And
Mhm.
eventually, I will leave behind the identity of astrology, which I honestly feel like I already am in a lot of ways. And that became the disintegration of myself as an astrologer because it was blocking me from becoming more.
Mm. So what are you
And
going towards now? Is it just astro shaman or broader, or what are we talking?
to be honest, that's just a name. Like I don't really identify with astro shaman. If I'm being honest, it's just a name that people in the world understand enough as for what they believe they need.
Yeah, yeah, I get all that, but I'm just saying what I'm asking is like to disintegrate your identification from that. What are you like moving towards in your mind then?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
This is kind of the point I'm saying in the first place. It's like it's part of the mindset that we have to go towards something that is a part of the trap. It's
Gotcha.
like there's nothing. It's like now again, there's a mystical element to what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. Part of it is just simply true. Another part of it is not satisfying to the mind because
Mhm.
it's like, well, what do you mean nothing? And it's like, well, the mind is not satisfied to that, but the heart is, because the heart now has space. Because only from an empty cup, right, can you like have enough space to follow a joy or a passion. If I'm overflowing, you always hear this saying, pour from an overflowing cup, yada yada yada. But it's these same languages and terminologies that trap us in the matrix. It's like
Mm.
when you allow yourself to be empty, you can have enough space to enjoy what comes next when it comes without trying to rush the process and create drama or distractions to get us out of what feels or seems like boredom.
Mm.
But it's like is it boring? It's very it's in some ways it's complicated because it's starting to shift the entire topic of this conversation in a whole different level, but it is what Gate 60 actually speaks about when you speak about the frequencies of justice.
Mhm.
Justice has nothing to do with the simple laws and all this. It's like it's like being able to this is really complicated because, again, like I said, no matter how I verbally announce this, it's not going to be satisfying to the mind. And this is a part of the current issue that we face as a collective. The mind needs to feel satisfied. It's like I need to be able to wrap my mind around this intellectually speaking, but it completely ignores intelligence. And it's like when I say intelligence, it's not intellect. Intelligence is not intellect. Intelligence is like my body, your body has a natural intelligence.
Right.
You shit when you need to shit. You don't need to demand. You don't need to, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you sleep. Your body metabolizes food. Your heart beats on its own. It doesn't require, it's an involuntary muscle. This is like a natural intelligence, right? So it's not intellect. There's a natural intelligence to the universe,
Right.
which really requires us to do nothing. Which means when I realize that I myself, as an astrologer, is completely disintegrating from the identity of being an astrologer, it means that I don't need to know what I'm becoming. I'm just going to become it. All I need to do is sit and watch. And if I can sit in the dullness, it gives me space to recognize the synchronicity and the clear audience messages. This is one of the major ways that it comes through for me. Things, entities, gods, call it what you want. They just whisper to me. They just whisper things. I'm like, when I was younger, it used to drive me crazy because I would think people were in the room. But like as I got older, I realized like, these are just my guides. They whisper
Ah,
things, and it's very clear. It's very clear. They're like, now you go this way. Okay. And how well we can accept that or whether we fight that, this is also part of this distraction from avoiding our destiny, our purpose, like where we're all going as a collective. So my point of what I'm saying is as human beings, do we have free will? Absolutely. Are we really in control of the system and the cogs? No. We think we are, and that's what distracts us and holds us down as a collective. And until we collectively understand that, we're not going to mutate to the point where we're no longer even humans. This is one of the big things that's happening with the US and Pluto and Capricorn. They're being forced to disintegrate with their careers and how they've identified with their careers, how they've identified with success, how they've identified with recognition, how they've identified, well, how do you climb a ladder to become a billionaire? All of that is disintegrating, which is
mm,
why the dollar needs to be attacked because that's what people care about in the US. They care about money.
that's
They
definitely
care,
true.
they care about money. So
Mm.
you have to take what the person cares about the most. This is what I found is very important when it comes to disintegration of like a scorpionic or ego death. You have to take what they are most obsessed about. And only when they realize that they can survive without it do they begin to embrace the next path. But we
Mm,
have to actually experience that not only can I survive without it, but life is better with it, out it. Like life has like evolved for me. Like what I find meaning in is now completely different. And this is where Sagittarius comes next in the immutable energy of change. When it comes to morals and philosophies, like now I'm not attached to that obsession anymore, and I've completely allowed myself to mutate my beliefs around this thing. But Pluto is the channel of mutation. See, and what she's saying is prime example. And this is kind of one of the things I was saying about earlier in the talk with um, what comes after February 2024 when we get into the energies of um, I said anticipation, and I think I forget what the shadow frequency was of it, but we allow ourselves to be misinterpreted. We realize like it's okay to not be understood. So what Jayla just put right here, I have this channel. It goes from the root chakra. Thank you, Jayla, for this. You gave me the next point. See, like me not trying to figure out where to go next, it gave me the next point.
mhm.
It's in the root chakra and it connects to the sacral chakra, and it's considered a mutative gate. And I have this fourth channel. I have the 3, which is considered my moon in Aries, where my degrees are at, and I have this in mm, Capricorn, Aquarius, literally the change of the two. And this gate, it speaks for basically It's a mutation that we don't know what's on the other side. This is one of the major things. The other side would be considered the three, which is like innocence and allowing ourselves to follow our innocent and artistic expressions, our artistic, creative, childlike energy. It gives us a brand new clean slate if we can follow that innocence, which is difficult because society does not respect the inner child. Okay, great. Gate 60 is saying here are these rules, these structures that we need to start embracing things with a certain sense of realism that, you know what, at the end of the day, I need to register my business because if I collect this money and I actually make this successful, they will tax me in a way that I will lose everything. That's part of getting realistic with the structures that exist. I need to register this LLC. Okay, fine. By doing that, I can then begin to work within the constraints of the systems and the structures that exist, not in spite of, because working against the current systems that are already going to decay anyways is really a losing battle. It's going to decay on its own. I just need to wait for that transformation to happen. And this is one of the biggest, hardest parts for, I think, all humans. It's the waiting part. It's like, well, how long? And this is like, how long? Well, what do I do while I wait? And so it's these questions, aka the mind, mental body, that basically destroy us and speed us up, which is false. We can't really speed crap up anyways. The transit is going to happen when it happens. It doesn't matter how far out I predict Venus retrograde and Leo and what might happen and what star it connects to. It has to get there. It has to then go back in retrograde, and then it has to come back to meet it again at 28 degrees or so in Regulus. I can't rush that process. It doesn't matter what my predictions are. Like what I predict about it matters not. Like, what will it really do at the end of the day? Because when we're talking mutative gates that we don't know what's on the other side, well, what's the point of predicting it? Which is why, like in general, like right now we have this Mars and Leo opposition.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the live now. Did I know about this coming weeks ago? Absolutely. I knew the transit was coming, but I didn't do it until now. Like it's happening right now as we speak.
Mm-hmm. Here it is.
So, Joe, on a wrap-up message of everything we spoke about today, what do you feel like people need to hear? No matter what, like just the whole. This is kind of like stepping back 5 steps from what we were just talking about and everything we spoke about today. If you were to just pause, close your eyes, and just like let it come to you, what do the people need to hear today?
No holds bar, no sugarcoating or nothing.
Why would you sugarcoat? Did I sound like somebody to sugarcoat to you?
No, I don't know. I just like the first thing that came to mind was don't give a shit. Like it just is.
It's really a part of it. In all sense, the best I can see, that's just really true. But I feel like
in a broader sense, it's like I feel like people really, really should take into account like, so what if you do dive into your past self? So what if you do like just like I really see it as just like broadly just being yourself and A/B testing life, like if this doesn't work, try something else. Like, why are you associating yourself with I think it's gonna like rearrange like people's passions and like vision. It's gonna like I feel like the biggest thing about this opposition is it's just gonna separate like the association of self with your passion, if that makes any sense. Like really just like identifying with that like you'll be able to fully realize that you achieve the best results when you're detached and you're just kind of like objectively looking. You know what I'm saying? So
no,
then
I'm hearing you.
yeah, so then when you truly focus on like it'll just be like the concept of self and the passion will just become 2 separate entities. And you'll be realigned with like, okay. And it'll sort of like for some people in an extreme sense, it really will feel like you're kind of like moving through life in that like third person like video game setting where you are just looking above you as a character and you're like, okay, I'm passionate about this right now, or at least I have this passion. And you'll just kind of really just be moving towards what you want to do And if it doesn't work out, you try something else and you try again later, and you really just take that step back. And I feel like the main thing that kind of resonates with me and what I've been like personally going through is like the concept of if you could hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no difference. Like it's still just a vision that's coming you from your mental field. So if you can create from within and fully detach from all these external circumstances and really get into that space ahead of time in terms of like not wanting to be what's the word? Like what was the 2024 thing you said? February? I can't hear you.
Bathroom break. I think 2024 Pluto moves and past 2 degrees of Aquarius.
No. You said something about like not caring about being misinterpreted.
Oh
Like
yeah, 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 yeah,
so
yeah.
this whole opposition is um you're gonna start doing that within before you do it without, if that makes any sense.
For
Like that.
sure.
So it's like everybody's gonna be like, all right, well, I don't understand why I'm passionate about this in myself, or why I want to go talk to that like old person, or why I want to go dive into this old habit that I had. This is
Hmm.
what I want to do.
Hmm.
Okay. It's fun. Is it helping me? Maybe. Is it not? No. Okay, let's move on. And it's just like there isn't going to be as much of that like mental chatter that people have. But
Sure,
yeah, that's good. Yeah,
sure. I feel like in conjunction with what you said, Taurus and Cancer are really honestly teaching us something major, right?
for sure.
And
It's a crazy
it's like,
sextile.
yeah, right. It is pretty wild. And one of the biggest things that I feel like is teaching is one, the importance of rest and
Mm.
how much it can put you in the feminine energy, the feminine vibrations. And as we
Mhm.
get into those feminine vibrations, we don't need to focus on where we're going or why we're going. We can just receive the direction. We can
Yeah.
receive the abundance. We can receive the answer on, well, here's what your value is today. You know, you play Taurus where it's at and how it transits you. But I feel like the major thing is, it's like these energies don't make it a priority to present how you stand your ground or what it means to stand your ground or to like, and I'm using the because I see in the chat, it's like you're just going to stand your ground and you don't really need to explain it. You just can receive, this is what it means to receive, to stand your ground. And in the process, because Taurus and Cancer are these individual energies, they're really kind of one of the major preparatory systems for us as we shift before we start interacting with other people, right? Because Leo is the first energy that starts interacting with other people. And so it's like once Cancer finally gets all the way out of there, it's all this time and this individual work that we're doing. And all the answers we received during this time frame, just because the tremendous amount of feminine energy in the sky. It's like, have you rested? Have you take the time to chill and relax so that you can take this with you when you do interact with others, Leo season to Scorpio season? Because it's like you will interact with others, but we don't want you to forget that taking the time to slow down, to pause, to shift when you get an intuitive hunch to shift
Mm.
is what allows you to interact with others and stand your ground. That is what allows you not to people please. That is what allow, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it is what allows you to allow other people to mistake what you said and to not take it personal and realize that's just your problem currently, and that's okay. Like, and by me allowing you to have that problem to yourself and not having to get involved and engage with the heat of that, I know that you'll actually get there because if I'm not allowing myself to be your distraction, I'm actually helping you and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm not allowing you, if I recognize that you're using me as a distraction and I'm just standing my ground for myself and I'm not allowing it and I'm taking myself out of that bubble, at the end of the day, either you're going to pass it on to somebody else or you're going to look back at yourself internally and be like, all right, like I actually realized that like this was on me. And if we start taking personal accountability in these moments, I feel like it's ultimately just going to support us through this opposition because stress, war, you know, and passion are all going to be mixed in, and it's like none of the war that we're going through right now is personal, and I honestly believe that. Like, it's not personal. We're all going to get checked at an ego, a God level, okay? Or when we just believe that we're just the smartest or the hottest stuff on the planet, we're going to get checked. It's going to happen in ways that we probably don't expect. But ultimately, I feel it's going to happen much softer as long as we keep thinking, you know, what would my heart do? And I feel like this is the major, major thing to this whole opposition energy. It's like, what would my heart do? Some people like to say, what would Jesus do? You know, in this moment of passion, this moment of heat, in this moment of discussion, in this moment of whatever. And I'm just looking at it in the moments like, you know, if my heart was just as bright as it can be, what would it do? You know, if it was just as loving as it can be, if it was as loving as it was before I was heartbroken, that point that we all crave, you know, before you had your first heartbreak, what if I can behave and act from that loving position? And I feel like that's one of the most beautiful places that we could be. I feel like this heart power is one of the major outlets of harmony that we can align with during this opposition energy. It's like, what would the heart do? And the hardest part to this is, well, what happens when you interact with somebody that is not doing what the heart would do?
Yeah.
How do you do what the heart would do anyways? And let them have their moment of glory. And these are the major, major pieces. Because if you're actually operating a heart frequency, you can allow that and not be impacted by that. And you can transmute that frequency. And it becomes fuel.
Well, that was beautiful.
I think he said what you said.
Yeah,
If you
he
can
did.
hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand.
It's facts though.
Dodgeball mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Taurus definitely does that. You know, I've been getting in tune with just the understanding of Taurus and its holding nature. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you can hold that idea, you can hold that thought, you can hold that manifestation long enough, time will show.
It'll be in front of you.
Saturn and Cancer. Ooh. Yeah, I took a 3 hour nap like 2 days ago, middle of the day. I was
Damn.
like, I was like already laying in bed,
Mm.
and then I just was like, it was wild, yo. Something just came over me. But it's kind of like what I was just saying, like this feminine energy of receiving. Like the received message was, yo, just turn the TV off and go to sleep. And I was like, okay. Like
And it was great.
no alarm, know what I got to do next. Just listen. Yo, just turn the TV off and go to sleep. Okay. I woke up. It was 3 hours later. I was like, where am I?
I love that feeling. It's the best. You have the best sleep when you don't have stank breath, and you're just like, and you have that nice coating of saliva on your teeth, and you're just like, oh, I slept good. That's the only way I know how to explain it.
I think you're exactly that. I think a human would continue to behave with that pureness. I think it's exactly that. And
Mm.
I feel like, with that, like, it's one of these things where, like, if and when we fall out of touch with that pureness, it's okay. Like, it's for anybody on the other side, like, it's okay. Like, if you get mad, understand that that's just the anger showing you what the boundary is that you crossed yourself, your own boundary, or that you allow somebody else to cross. And
Mm.
then that allows you to, when you can just embrace that, and it's like, okay, cool, I need to set a boundary here. The biggest thing is, can we let go? Like, right? Like, I think the guy, the psychologist, brain guy, whatever, I don't know who it was. Oh, Joe
Joe?
Dispenza. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
He was like, anything that you hold on to for longer than 5 minutes, you're addicted to. He was like, we've done this scientific research study. He is like, no matter
Yeah.
what it is, he's like, if you're angry for longer than 5 minutes, you're addicted to anger.
I don't know about all that.
I found it to be true.
Oh, really?
I'm not kidding. Because I wanted to be like, huh? When I first heard it. And I was like, I hit my whole skepticism, and then I started realizing, oh snap, I was actually addicted to anger. And I
Mm.
realized like there's a big difference between being angry, like just angry, just out there, and then specifically directing your anger intensely at a single person. And I realized there's a very big difference to be mad about something and not even fully understand what you're mad about, and then to be angry at a specific person and direct
Oh,
it at them like an arrow, and then to hold it. And this is the key. Like, this is why I love Aries. It's like, can you have an angry outburst and then let it go? And let that angry outburst be, you know, the driving force that actually started to create resolutions because something wasn't communicated for long enough. And you needed to have that burst of anger. And it's not directly at the person. It's just like, look, this moment makes me angry for whatever reason. And I feel like when we allow ourselves to start, I had to take practice with this in all sincerity. Like when I allowed myself to start having those moments, I realized this isn't so personal. It's just a revelation. And it's like, well, what is it revealing? And it's like when I allowed that, then it's like the whole key thing with us, and the hardest part that I feel like took me training on the follow up was, well, how not to stay mad.
mm.
Like, okay, cool. I got the point out. I communicated what made me angry, but why am I still angry? And that is the part I realized. Like, you really can be addicted to anger. You could really be addicted to anything. Quite frankly, anything could be addiction. So, hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is the discussion. That said, hit the thumbs up, hit the likes button. If you're on Joe's channel, if you're not, check out his YouTube, check out his Instagram. It's literally how you see it here. Oh, you don't see that. Hold on. You'll see it up in the top of my YouTube video. I don't know where you're watching this. I'm sure you already have him if he's on your channel. Um, let me pull this up for you. Where is it? Okay, right here. Yes, display names. Okay, so cool. So if you see right here in the parentheses, you'll see solar systems. You could check that on YouTube. You could check that on IG,
Instagram, TikTok.
and it's the same. Um, and so I definitely recommend y'all all check them out. Wild Harmony, good to see you. I see. I feel that I hate when I get angry as an Aries. Emotional authority. Oh yeah, see the emotional authorities. Y'all the ones.
Mm.
Because it's not even always just your anger either. It's like
You
y'all
should be
have
mad.
that type of. It would be like part collective. It's like
Mm.
the emotional solar plexus. It's kind of what I was saying. We're all leaving from this mind, mental,
Mm.
ajna, if you will, and the head, and we're moving into the solar plexus, which would be like this emotional center. I think you had an emotional authority, matter of fact.
Oh,
And
I do.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like this is the magic. When we get here as a collective, we can all start just embracing the purity of life. So,
Mm.
thank you, J Lo. It was good to see you, Starlander, Uraeus, Vanessa, everybody up in the chat. Really, I love you all for being here. Hannah, check 212. We'll tap in soon. Um, Joe, I appreciate you. This is an
Yeah, you too.
impromptu. We'll tap